Chapter 205. The snow in the forest had melted, but the night wind was so cold that even someone as strong as Xiahou Sang could not help but clench his teeth. He held his sword and hid in the grass. He lowered his voice and said angrily, "This group of rebellious traitors disturb my sleep. How hateful! My lord, should we kill them all or?" Lin Muyu said lightly, "What do you think?" Xiahou Sang's eyes flashed and he said, "Kill." Lin Muyu asked again, "Wei Chou, what do you think?" Wei Chou gripped the demon-devouring bow tightly, his eyes glowing faintly under the moonlight. His expression was solemn as he said, "Although most of these chivalrous men are commoners, most of them have been instilled with the ideals of the House of Chivalry. So even if we show mercy, they will definitely kill us. In this case, if the Imperial Army shows mercy, we will be the ones to suffer." Lin Muyu sighed and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito, "Then kill." "Yes, Commander." The moonlight fell on the pure white cloak of the holy temple. Lin Muyu squinted his eyes. Many people were destined to die tonight. What was he doing? Had he really become a pawn of the Empire? He shook his head. No, definitely not. He had his own judgment and would not be bewitched by others. Here, killing the people of the House of Chivalry was a righteous act. After all, his subordinates, the royal guards, would not bully the civilians. That was enough. The sound of horses' hooves and footsteps came from afar. They were here. Under the moonlight, about 200 people from the House of Chivalry appeared in the forest. They attacked from the west side of the valley. The number of cavalry was small, less than 20. Most of them were wanderers on foot with swords and sabers. Moreover, their cultivation was very average. Needless to say, this was the military strength of a branch of the House of Chivalry in the North Ridge province. A wanderer with a scar on his face led the way. He held a long saber in his hand and shouted, "Charge into the camp, leave no one alive." Damn it, these dogs of the Empire, they didn't even send anyone to keep watch. They're digging their own graves. The ranger with the scar on his face had a golden emblem on his chest. He was a Jinzun ranger, but he was not very strong. He seemed to be at the first layer of Earth Realm. Under his orders, a large group of rangers charged into the camp and tore down the tents. They kicked away the bonfire and the soup pot the Imperial Army had set up. They looked incredibly rude and unreasonable. Wei Chou tightened his grip on his bow. He turned to look at Lin Muyu, waiting for his orders. Lin Muyu nodded. Whoosh! An arrow shot out from the demon-devouring bow, directly piercing through Scarface's neck. Fresh blood flowed. A dignified Jinzun ranger had actually been killed by a single arrow from Wei Chou. Fire! Xiahou Sang ordered loudly. Almost all of the 100 royal guards were equipped with longbows. Instantly, arrows rained down on the campsite. Screams of agony could be heard. Before the rangers even knew where their opponents were, they had already lost nearly half of their troops. Clang! Lin Muyu unsheathed her dragon spirit sword. She said in a low voice, "Get on your horses and charge." Yes. The Imperial Army soldiers got on their horses and charged forward quickly. With Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others leading the Imperial Army soldiers, they blocked the way in front. All of them had their martial souls, so how could the rangers resist? Lin Muyu swung her sword from above, slicing a wanderer and his shield into two halves. With another wave of her left hand, the dragon spirit sword chopped off the heads of two halberds. As the sword chi continued to wreak havoc, two more screams rang out. In front of them, 7 rangers on war horses raised their spears and charged over. Lin Muyu immediately sheathed her sword. She reached into her cosmos sack with one hand and pulled out the pear blossom spear with a whoosh. She quickly charged over. The spear glowed with a cold light, and 3 snow-white pear blossoms blossomed in the air. At the same time, 3 rangers fell to the ground, howling in pain. Lin Muyu continued forward. She used the spear technique that she had stolen from Zhao Jin. The tip of the spear lightly knocked away the opponent's spear, and the spear directly pierced through his chest. However, this ranger had guts. He reached out to grab the pear blossom spear and roared, "Empire dog, even if I die, I will drag you to hell with me." Lin Muyu coldly snorted and poured battle chi into her right arm. She raised the pear blossom spear horizontally and smashed the ranger's body against the other 2. Immediately, screams rang out. The heads of the rangers collided, and their bodies burst open. A thick smell of blood rushed into her nose, and immediately, Lin Muyu almost vomited. She hurriedly activated the wall of the gourd, and a golden light flickered. While protecting herself, she also didn't want to see too many cruel scenes. The battle ended very quickly. When Xia Hosang chopped off the head of the last ranger, all 200+ rangers had been reduced to corpses. On the other hand, only a few of the royal army had suffered light injuries. It was a crushing victory. Bah! Xia Hosang spat at a corpse. His eyes were filled with anger as he said, "You bunch of trash want to topple the empire? What a fool's dream." Wei Chou said, "My lord, what do we do now?" Lin Muyu wiped the blood off the pear blossom spear and said, "Search these corpses to see if there's anything valuable on them, then bury them all. We'll set out tomorrow morning." "Yes," Xia Hosang mumbled. "My lord, why bother burying the corpses of these traitors? In my opinion, we should just leave their corpses in the wilderness and let the wild beasts feast on them. At the very least, we should set up stakes along the way and chop off their heads. This will serve as a warning to those who have rebelled against the empire. Let's see if they still dare to act so insolently." Lin Muyu frowned. "If that's the case, I'm afraid we'll really become the empire's dogs in their eyes. His Majesty Qin Jin is a benevolent ruler and doesn't want to kill too many people. If we act so cruelly, we'll be playing right into their hands." Xia Hosang was startled. He hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "This lowly general has not thought things through. Please punish me, my lord." "There's nothing to punish. Get back to work." Yes. Before long, Wei Chou walked over with a blood-stained document in his hand. "My lord, there's something you need to take a look at." "Oh, what is it?" "This is a customs clearance document." Lin Muyu unfurled the scroll. Although it was stained with blood, it did not affect her reading. It was a customs clearance document from Cangnan Province to Lingbei Province. There was even the seal of the governor's office of Cangnan Province on it. Moreover, the clearance document indicated that the target of entry was the 100 people from the House of Chivalry. Wei Chou said coldly, "It seems that this governor of Cangnan Province, Hu Tianning, is really not simple. His Majesty ordered the extermination of the House of Chivalry, yet he still dared to privately issue a customs clearance document to the people of the House of Chivalry. Could it be before that?" "No," Wei Chou said decisively. "The day after the assassination in Deer Garden, His Majesty sent out a letter to announce to the world. But this customs clearance document is dated 5 days ago. No matter how you try to explain it, you can't get away with it." Lin Muyu rolled up the document and stuffed it into her Qianquan bag. She said with a smile, "Just pretend you didn't see this piece of paper." Wei Chou understood tacitly. "Yes, my lord." Hu Tianning was the provincial governor and held the military power of nearly 100,000 troops. This kind of feudal lord could not be casually touched. Just this document was not enough to convict him. Moreover, this time Lin Muyu came to Cangnan Province with a request from Hu Tianning. Even if she wanted to make a move, she had to wait until she obtained the Jin Pingmei. 3 days later, the imperial guards finally arrived at the core city of Cangnan Province, Five Valleys City. Five Valleys City was one of the 7 famous cities of the empire. It was famous for its water and rice. It had a population of 2.4 million people. The land was fertile and the population was abundant. It was said that half of the food of the imperial capital Lanyan City came from Five Valleys City. It was precisely because of the products of Five Valleys City that Qin Jin ordered the construction of this official road, known as the Grain Road 10 years ago. Looking from afar, the outline of Five Valleys City was very majestic. Although it was not as towering as the imperial capital Lanyan City, it could be considered to have a different style. The city walls of about 10 meters high surrounded the entire Five Valleys City, and one could not see the end of it at a glance. On the main road, there was an endless stream of merchants and civilians, and patrolling guards could be seen everywhere. When Lin Muyu and the others appeared in the sight of the city, a cavalry team in the city came to greet them. The leader was a man who looked like a scholar, but had a protruding mouth and monkey-like cheeks. He smiled and cupped his fists saying, "I am Hu Yang, commander of the governor's office. Greetings, Milord Lin Muyu, the second of the 4 heroes of Lanyan City. Milord's presence in Five Valleys City makes us feel honored. The governor has sent me to welcome Milord. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Milord is too polite. Commander Lin Muyu has come from afar. You must be tired. Please follow me into the city. Governor Hu Tianning has already set up a banquet in the governor's office. Okay, thank you. Xiahou Sang laughed secretly. This Hu Tianning is quite sensible. Lin Muyu turned around and glared at him. Immediately, Xiahou Sang did not dare to say anything more. Along the way, they entered Five Valleys City in a grandiose manner. When passing through the market, they saw many naked girls dressed in alien costumes being escorted by a group of soldiers. There were about hundreds of people. Some were crying, and some were looking at the people around them with cold eyes. Their eyes were full of hatred and anger. Lin Muyu asked with a smile, Milord Hu Yang, what's the matter with these women? Hu Yang's gaze swept across and revealed a trace of contempt. He smiled and said, These are the barbarian sluts of Lingdong province. Last month, there was a rebellion in Lingdong province. 20,000 barbarian soldiers crossed Tianshu province along the Qinling Mountains and attempted to attack our Five Valleys City. However, Governor Hu Tianning ordered the Flying Mount Battalion to attack. More than 10,000 heavy cavalry of the Flying Mount Battalion quelled the rebellion at almost zero cost. As he spoke, Hu Yang curled his lips and smiled. Well, these women are all barbarian sluts. After they were captured, they were sold as female slaves. They are very cheap. You can buy one for just a few Jining coins. Some of the more hot-tempered barbarian women can be bought for just a few dozen silver yin coins. Hey, milord, are you interested in these women? Lin Muyu shook her head, smiled, and said, How could that be possible? I'm not that kind of person. Hey. Hu Yang also smiled. Milord, you are so handsome. Indeed, you don't need these lowly barbarian women. By the way, Milord Hu Yang, what will be done with these female slaves in the future? Hu Yang said, Those who are good-looking will usually be bought by the nobles or the rich to be kept as their exclusive property. Those who are average or below will mostly be bought by the army to be their concubines. Of course, after defeating the enemy, the army has basically captured enough women to be their concubines, so there is no need to buy too many. Lin Muyu was a little surprised. Is it the rule of the empire to capture women every time they conquer a city? Hu Yang nodded. Yes, this is an unwritten rule. Otherwise, the morale of the army will be damaged. I see. Chapter 206. This time, Lin Muyu did nothing, because he could not save these barbarian girls with his ability, and he could only see hatred in their eyes. Lin Muyu knew that he was not the reincarnation of a living Buddha, so he did not bother to be a good person. Some things were better to let nature take its course. The governor's mansion was exceptionally luxurious, even more so than the duke's mansion where Tang Xiaoxi lived. On the doorpost of the duke's mansion in Five Valleys City, reliefs were carved with real gold. The images of rice, livestock, rice, and fish were vivid and lifelike, symbolizing that the city was famous for its animal husbandry, fishing, and planting, as well as its strong army and horses. On the gilded steps, the provincial governor, Hu Tianning, dressed in military attire, walked down step by step with his hand on the hilt of his sword. He cupped his fists and smiled. Welcome, Lord Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, to Five Valleys City. Lin Muyu immediately made a military salute and said respectfully, Lord Governor is too polite, I am flattered. Ah. Hu Tianning looked at Lin Muyu and smiled. Heroes truly come from the young. Lord Lin Muyu was just a nameless junior when he left Silver Fir City, but now you've become an outstanding general personally appointed by His Majesty. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at in a new light. Hu Tianning has no choice but to admire you. Come, my lord, you must be exhausted. Follow me to the dining table. Thank you. Lin Muyu cupped his fists, and the attendants led the horses away, while Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others followed with their weapons. Five Valleys City was only the center of a province, and could not be compared with Lanyan City. Moreover, Lin Muyu came with the emperor's edict this time. No matter how strict the governor's mansion was, they dared not disarm Lin Muyu and the others. In the hall, A grand luncheon was held to entertain the distinguished guests. Hu Tianning sat at the host's seat, while Lin Muyu sat at the second seat. Opposite Lin Muyu was a young general of about 30 years old. Judging from his aura, this person had stepped into the heaven realm, and was probably the strongest general in the entire governor's mansion. Come. Hu Tianning raised his cup and said with a smile. Today the distinguished guests have come to Cangnan province. Everyone in Five Valleys City rejoiced. Drink with me to welcome Lord Lin Muyu. Everyone raised their cups and drank in one gulp. Suddenly, a burning sensation slid down his throat. Lin Muyu sat there steadily, nodded and smiled. Thank you for your hospitality, Lord Governor, I am very grateful. Hu Tianning laughed. You don't have to be so polite. Come, let me introduce you. This is General Long Qianlin, who was personally conferred the title of Eastern Suppression General by His Majesty 2 years ago. He is currently in charge of Cangnan Province, in charge of 120,000 soldiers in Cangnan Province. Moreover, General Long Qianlin has achieved success at a young age, and Lord Lin Muyu is also a young hero. We can learn from each other. Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said respectfully. Subordinate pays respect to Lord Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu also returned the salute. You are too polite, Lord. It should be subordinate paying respect to you. In terms of military rank, Long Qianlin was a 4th-grade general, while Lin Muyu was only a 6th-grade general. They couldn't be compared at all. However, the main reason why Long Qianlin was so respectful should be because of Lin Muyu's identity. The emperor's adopted son, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, was enough to match the status of a 2nd-grade national general. Hu Tianning put down his cup and said with a smile. Lord Lin Muyu may not know, but General Long Qianlin has just made an unprecedented achievement last month. He led more than 10,000 heavy cavalry of the Flying Mount Battalion to intercept more than 20,000 troops of the Winter Barbarians at the foot of the Qinling Mountains. He forced the barbarians to hastily engage in battle with the tactic of setting fire to their main camp. He won a great victory, beheaded more than 10,000 people, and lost less than 1,000 of his own men. He can be called a famous contemporary general. Lin Muyu was stunned for a moment, then said with a smile. So the battle to defeat the barbarians was commanded by Lord Long Qianlin? My apologies. Long Qianlin couldn't help but be a little mischievous and said helplessly. Actually, those barbarians don't know the art of war. They don't have any tactics or formations in battle, so I was able to defeat them with the heavy cavalry formation. I'm afraid that any general can do the same. I really don't deserve the title of famous general. I only hope that I can reflect on myself every day and live up to the salary that the empire gives me. Lin Muyu couldn't help but have a good impression of this Long Qianlin. It was reasonable to say that a young man who commanded 120,000 troops should be arrogant and supercilious, but this Long Qianlin was still so respectful, which was really rare. Lin Muyu said, It seems that I really need to ask General Long for advice. I, Lin Muyu, am just a boorish man. I only have strength, but I know nothing about the art of war or the art of war. Lord is too modest. Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, If Lord wants to ask for advice, I will definitely tell you everything I know. Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Thank you. In fact, when it came to the art of war, Lin Muyu had been forced by his father to read Sun Tzu's Art of War and other military books since he was young, so it could be said that he was very familiar with them. The only thing he lacked was the tempering of using troops on the battlefield. Moreover, with his intelligence and wisdom, he would definitely be able to display his strong points. After 3 rounds of wine, Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others were slightly tipsy. Hu Tianning clapped his hands and said with a smile, Bring on the dancers. Immediately, a group of young girls dressed in chiffon dresses slowly walked into the main hall and danced gracefully to the accompaniment of the musicians. They were overflowing with beauty, and these young girls were all carefully selected. In terms of appearance and beauty, they were all top-notch. For a moment, the group of guests in the governor's manor were already staring at them. Using the excuse of drunkenness, they once again began to drink with each other. Lin Muyu remained sober. using the spirit pulse technique to dispel the drunkenness from her mind time and time again. After an unknown amount of time, Hu Tianning drunkenly stood up, his body swaying a little, and said with a smile, "Today is a joyous gathering, and these dancers are all maids trained by my manor. If there are any that you like, please feel free to bring them back to your room. If these maids are favored by you, then I will not have failed you." For a moment, the deputy generals, brigadier generals, and captains of the governor's manor all laughed drunkenly. Some even stood up and pointed at one of the dancers, shouting with a smile, "I want that one, the one with the biggest breasts." Hu Tianning held the table and said with a smile, "Don't be rude. Let the honored guests choose first. Lord Lin Muyu, you are Laozi's honored guest in the imperial capital. Come, among these dancers, which one do you think is the most beautiful?" Lin Muyu stood up, cupped her fists and said with a smile, "Yellow, purple, and green, these three are the most beautiful." Hu Tianning waved his hand. "Did you hear that? The three of you will serve Lord tonight." "Don't." Lin Muyu cupped her fists again and said, "Lord Governor, Lin Muyu has a heavy responsibility this time, so I appreciate Lord Governor's intention. As for these dancers, I'm afraid I don't have the fortune to enjoy them." Hu Tianning was stunned, and couldn't help but burst into laughter. "I heard that Princess Shi and Her Highness Yin have a very close relationship with Lord Governor. Looks like it's true. Lord Governor doesn't like these mediocre women." Lin Muyu smiled awkwardly, tacitly agreeing. Hu Tianning continued, "Lord Imperial Guards, if there are any dancers you like, you don't have to be courteous, feel free to choose." Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, "The martial arts manual that I cultivate forbids me from getting close to women. I appreciate Lord Governor's kindness." Xia Hosang was already dead drunk, his eyes were drowsy, and his mouth was dry. He looked at Lin Muyu and asked, "Lord Governor, can this general? Lin Muyu smiled faintly. In any case, only she and Wei Chou knew about the customs clearance documents, and it didn't matter that Xia Hosang knew very little. She nodded and said, "If there is anyone you like, bring them back." "Thank you, Lord Governor." Xia Hosang felt as if he had been granted amnesty, and immediately pointed at a group of dancers and said, "The ones in purple and yellow, come together." For a moment, Lin Muyu felt like dying. She held her forehead and thought to herself, "Damn it! Why do I have such a lecherous subordinate?" From afar, Long Qianlin looked at Lin Muyu's expression, and also secretly smiled. As a result, Xia Hosang and the other two imperial guards took away a total of 4 dancers, while the remaining dozens of dancers were given to the high-ranking officers of the governor's office to serve them. Just like Lin Muyu, although Long Qianlin was the highest commander, he rejected Hu Tianning's good intentions. Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, Xia Hosang and the others were arranged to stay in the governor's mansion's VIP room. And after Lin Muyu expressed the purpose of her visit, Hu Tianning very happily said that he would send a bouquet of Jinping plums to the VIP room tomorrow morning. This made Lin Muyu feel relieved. This trip to Songnan province could be considered smooth, and she did not fail her mission. The only flaw was that the noise next door was too loud. Xia Hosang was full of energy, making the 2 dancers feel like dying, so much so that their voices penetrated the wall and directly reached Lin Muyu's ears. "Ah, Lord Governor is so strong. This lowly concubine can't stand it anymore. Watch carefully, I still have more powerful moves. Lord Governor, don't I really can't. Lord Governor, you say that Lin Muyu Lord is so handsome, him or you? Who is better in bed?" "Nonsense, of course my Lord Governor is stronger. If I let you talk more, quickly lie down. I will let you know what is called powerful." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile bitterly. Xia Hosang's words could be considered as loyal and devoted to her. Walking out of the door, it was a bleak winter, and the fallen leaves in the courtyard slowly rolled with the wind. Lin Muyu casually pulled out the dragon spirit sword, and with the help of her tipsy state, she danced a set of wind-riding sword technique. When she sheathed the sword, she heard applause coming from outside. In the darkness, a man came in. It was the General of the East, Long Qianlin. "General Long hasn't slept yet?" Lin Muyu smiled slightly. Long Qianlin also smiled. "Isn't Lord Governor also awake? Just now I saw Lord Governor's swordsmanship. It is indeed outstanding, and can be considered to have reached the realm of lightness. My third-rate swordsmanship. Haha, it is not worth mentioning. Lin Muyu laughed, pointed to the stone table next to her, and said, "Would General Long like to sit?" "Yes." Long Qianlin immediately sat down, and asked with a smile, "Is it the first time Lord Governor has come to Five Valley City?" "Yes." "What do you think of Five Valley City?" "It is very rich and the soldiers are strong. I saw those prisoners of war on the street." "Lord Governor, are you referring to those barbarian girls?" Long Qianlin's expression darkened, and he said, "Many of those girls were forced to pick up crude weapons to rebel before they reached adulthood, but in the end, they became the meritorious service of a third-rate general like me. Lord Governor, if I say this, will you look down on me?" Lin Muyu was stunned. "No." Long Qianlin pressed his hand on the cold stone table, and said with a smile, "I don't know how many people died in vain in this battle. I really don't know when the world will truly be at peace." "General, are you dissatisfied with the current situation?" Lin Muyu suddenly asked. This time it was Long Qianlin's turn to be a little nervous, and he hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "No, I dare not, I do not mean that. I just feel that those barbarian girls are also born by their parents, and they are actually the same as us. It is only the difference in culture that makes the hatred between each other irreconcilable. I am not dissatisfied with the current situation, but I am a little presumptuous. I hope Lord Governor can be magnanimous." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. "It's all right, I also feel a little unfair for those barbarians, but I am powerless." Long Qianlin's eyes shone brightly, and he said with a burning gaze, "Lord Governor, if you were me, what would you do to those barbarians? Those who offend my territory, no matter how far away they are, must be killed." "Yes." Long Qianlin was stunned, and he actually felt a sense of arrogance and domineeringness from Lin Muyu. Chapter 207. The next day, he held a plum blossom in his hand and carefully sniffed its scent. It seemed to be exactly the same as the Jin Pingmei described by Lulu. Presumably, Hu Tianning would not lie to him. After all, not everyone dared to defy the emperor's imperial edict. After repeatedly thanking him, he led Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others to leave Five Valley City, heading straight for North Ridge Province. The sound of hooves gradually faded. The figures of Lin Muyu and the others had already disappeared on the horizon. Hu Tianning suddenly heaved a sigh of relief and said lightly, "Qianlin." Long Qianlin cupped his fists at the side and said, "My lord, this general is here." "Did you tell Lin Muyu about the barbarian girls and the camp concubines last night?" "I did." Hu Tianning raised his brows and said, "What did he say?" Long Qianlin said respectfully, "He only said that this matter was slightly unfair, but did not say anything. He doesn't seem like the crazy General Lin Muyu, who can smash the nurturing hall in a fit of anger." A bright light flashed in Hu Tianning's eyes, not showing his emotions on his face. "This Lin Muyu's current cultivation is far from simple as we imagined. I see that his strength is restrained, just like a mortal. This kind of expert is really not simple. In the future, our Songnan province should try not to offend this person. This kind of opponent is too terrifying." Long Qianlin nodded and suddenly said, "My lord, there are still more than 700 barbarian girls imprisoned in the camp. Many of them are suitable for marriage. This general thinks, perhaps we should not use them as camp concubines. Instead, we should let our soldiers choose and marry them. They will become soldiers' family members and be raised in Five Valley City. What does my lord think?" "Haha." Hu Tianning turned to look at Long Qianlin and said with cold eyes, "Qianlin, are you really soft-hearted?" Long Qianlin hurriedly said, This general just feels that this seems to be extremely unfair to them. As Lin Muyu said, the fate of these barbarian girls should not be like this. We have no right to control it." "No." Hu Tianning's voice sank as he said, "I just want all of them to join my camp. Qianlin, your literary and military skills are second to none in this world, but you absolutely cannot be soft-hearted. I want you to know that all of this war is just a game of hegemony. There is only benefit and strength, there is no benevolence, and there is no morality." Long Qianlin gritted his teeth, cupped his fists and said, "Yes, I understand." "Qianlin." Hu Tianing's voice softened a bit. "If you have time, spend more time with Xiaoyan. She's your fiancée and my daughter. You can't spend all your time on military training, do you understand?" Long Qianlin nodded and said, "Yes, sir, after I've collected all the stuffs of the flying mount camp, I'll spend more time with Xiaoyan. You can rest assured." "Okay." After lunch, they entered the official road and galloped away. "Sir, why don't we take out the customs clearance document to interrogate Hu Tianing?" Wei Chou spurred his horse forward and looked at Lin Muyu with a puzzled expression. "Even if we can't convict Hu Tianing, we can at least give him a warning." Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "There's no need for that. If we really shed all pretense of cordiality, this matter may not end well. Moreover, as you can see, the Five Valleys city has a strong army. Their flying mount camp is known as one of the most elite heavy cavalry in the north of the Qinling Mountains. The fact that they could annihilate more than 20,000 barbarians with minimal losses is the best proof. Once a conflict breaks out, the 100 of us won't even be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. As for whether Hu Tianing has any disloyal intentions, it's enough for us to know. There's no need to let him know." "Yes, sir is wise." Lin Muyu turned sideways and looked at Xiahou Sang. She smiled and asked, "Xiahou, how did the two dancers taste last night?" Xiahou Sang blushed and said with a smile, "Sir, don't make fun of me. I, Xiahou Sang, don't have any hobbies in my life except for lust. I admit it. Hehe, the martial arts of the two dancers are really good. Hu Tianing is really hospitable. He is even willing to entertain us with such beauties." Lin Muyu raised the corner of her mouth and said, "Don't think that this is a good thing. As the saying goes, one's mouth is short of food. In the future, you will have something that Hu Tianing can use against you. Maybe one day, this can take your life." Xiahou Sang couldn't help but laugh. "Sir, you worry too much. I, Xiahou Sang, am not the kind of person who will be threatened by others. If Hu Tianing really wants to use this to threaten me, I will fall out with him and sleep with him. I don't owe him anything." Lin Muyu gave him a thumbs up. "You are really frighteningly honest." Hehe. They galloped to the hour of the sea. Snow began to fall in the jungle near Tsangnan province. Although it was not thick, only about 3 centimeters thick on the ground, it seemed to make the weather become colder. Lin Muyu had been observing every movement in the jungle on both sides along the way. Her eyebrows were tightly knitted. "Sir, is there something wrong?" Wei Chou was attentive and saw that Lin Muyu was acting strangely. "No, there is nothing wrong." Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "We will set up camp and rest in another 10 li. "Yes." After galloping for 10 li, they set up camp and rested in the jungle on the side of the official road. Lin Muyu fed some fodder to the warhorse and urged it to patrol around. "Wei Chou, let out the birds we are raising." "Okay." Under Wei Chou's order, the 10 Imperial Guards took the cage from the side of the warhorse. The moment the cage was opened, the black bird immediately flapped its wings and flew out. This kind of bird was different from messenger birds. They were domesticated for the purpose of war and could serve as scouts. Moreover, the sound of their flight was very quiet and not easy to be discovered. "We already have a 10-kilometer radius of detection. Is Sir still worried?" Wei Chou asked with a smile. Lin Muyu stood under a huge rock wall with a long sword in her hand. She rubbed the outside of her hand to keep out the cold. "After we left Five Valleys City, something has been following us." "Ah." Wei Chou was stunned. "What is it that we did not discover? It doesn't look like a human." Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and whispered, "It looks like a kind of wild beast. I have seen the footprints of that kind of beast many times in the snow. 3 palms, each palm print is in the shape of a diamond. Do you know what it is?" "Leopard wolf." Wei Chou was shocked and said, "According to Sir's analysis, this kind of beast is the legendary leopard wolf. It is said that there are people in the Imperial Army who domesticate this kind of leopard wolf, just like taming hounds, but the leopard wolf is smaller and faster. More importantly, the leopard wolf's sense of smell is hundreds of times stronger than that of a hound, and it is very convenient to use it to track." Could it be that there are people in Five Valley City who domesticate leopard wolves? Lin Muyu said lightly. It's hard to say. Wei Qiu frowned and said, the Five Valley City can indeed be said to have a strong army and strong horses. Moreover, that Long Qianlin is also a peerless general talent. With him in the army, it might not be impossible to tame leopards and wolves. My lord, we might really have our eyes on them. Lin Muyu said lightly. Order everyone to not take off their armor tonight. Sleep tight and be ready to attack at any time. Tie the war horses to the side of the camp, and don't go too far away. Once the scout birds send the news, everyone must prepare for battle. First, find out who the opponent is, and then fight if we can beat them. If we can't beat them, run. Our war horses are all good horses in the western regions. We can definitely outrun them. Yes. It was already late at night after they hurriedly finished the military meal. Lin Muyu did not sleep. She tied the war horses to the side of the central tent and jumped on a high rock at the side of the camp. She reached out to sweep away the snow and lifted her cloak to cover her head. Her pair of clear eyes quietly looked into the depths of the forest in the snow. At the same time, she gradually spread out the spiritual pulse technique. With her current cultivation, she could roughly rely on the spiritual pulse technique to sense the movement within 5 miles, and perhaps it was more useful than the scout birds. After a day of running, she was slightly tired. She gradually closed her eyes and slowly took a nap on the huge rock with her long sword in her arms. After an unknown period of time, an extremely strong fluctuation suddenly came from the spiritual pulse technique. A large group of people with slightly stronger auras entered the detection radius of the spiritual pulse technique. Lin Muyu immediately opened her eyes and flipped down the rock. After she mounted her horse, she came to the camp and said in a low voice, "Everyone get up. Someone is coming." Wei Qiu quickly rushed out of the camp with his sword in hand and said, "My lord, the birds have not returned yet." "There's no need to wait. Everyone, get on your horses and go to the ravine on the west side to prepare for an ambush." Yes. Everyone skillfully mounted their horses and went to the ambush point. The sound of the horses' hooves landing on the snow was not loud. Very soon, everyone hid and covered the mouths of the war horses. Pairs of eyes in the snow looked into the distance, silently waiting for the visitors. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A black bird landed on the back of a royal guard. This royal guard had learned how to communicate with scouting birds. After listening to the chirping of the bird, he turned and said, "My lord, there are nearly 500 people, but we can't confirm where they are from for the time being." Lin Muyu nodded. In fact, her spiritual pulse technique had already detected this group of people. There were more than 500 auras, and the strongest one was about the third heaven of the earth realm. There were dozens of people who were basically in the human realm. The rest were not cultivators and were just ordinary boars. However, with so many people moving together, it was obvious that they were not simple. Don't make a sound. Control your auras and wait for my orders before acting. Lin Muyu said lightly. Yes. First, they had to determine who they were. There was no light in the snowy night. In the darkness, vague figures appeared on the forest path. All of them were riding on war horses, but the hooves were obviously wrapped in cloth, so the sound of the hooves was very soft. This group of people also lit torches, and all of them were silent. They were much more cautious than the people from the House of Chivalry they had met before. Lin Muyu took a closer look, and under the faint light, she still saw the golden emblem on the neck of the leader. However, it was not the Jinzun Ranger, but a chess user. Sure enough, it was the people from the House of Chivalry again. However, this time, it should be the people from the Tsangnan province's headquarters. With such a large number of people, and a chess user personally coming forward, Wei Qiu turned to look at Lin Muyu, asking if they should act. Lin Muyu slowly opened her palm, and a golden light bloomed. The gourd martial soul had already come out of her body. She suddenly shouted, "Royal Guard, close your eyes." Hum. The golden gourd soared into the sky, and in the next moment, Lin Muyu activated the special ability of her martial soul, Light of Dawn. A dazzling light bloomed in the dark night, as if it was daytime. Such a strong light in a dark space was obviously not something that a normal person's eyes could withstand. In an instant, a large group of rangers were so blinded that they could not open their eyes, and were in a mess. Whoosh! A bunch of gourd vines broke out of the ground, and directly wrapped around the body of the chess user's warhorse. Lin Muyu raised her hand, and a small magic sonar blade silently flew out. The blade was enshrouded in a dense battle aura, and in the blink of an eye, a golden light flashed, and she became invisible. At the same time she shouted, "Open your eyes and release the arrows. Attack!" Chapter 208. Yu Isher gripped his steel saber, and stared at the air in front of him. He could feel the ripples of air being cut, but he couldn't see anything. He could only raise his saber in front of his chest to block the attack. He felt a sudden chill on his neck, and he felt as if his soul had been stripped from his body. He could no longer muster any strength. Puff! The little magic sonar saber revealed its true form after being stained with blood. It spun rapidly in the air, and the sky beast's soul hidden in the saber quickly evaporated the blood. It became invisible again and slashed diagonally into the neck of another Jinzun ranger. Only the sound of the saber could be heard but not seen. These cultivators didn't cultivate any secret arts like the spirit pulse technique, so they couldn't block the magic sonar saber's attack even if they could hear it. The little magic sonar saber killed 2 people in a row. One was Yu Isher, and the other was Jinzun. This was the first time the recast magic sonar saber was used, and it had already made a great contribution. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Arrows flew everywhere, and in an instant, dozens of rangers were killed or injured on the small path. However, they were still brave. Many of them raised their swords and rushed into the gully, fighting with the royal guards. Kill! The dragon spirit in Lin Muyu's hand fell into the crowd in a beautiful arc, killing more than 10 people in an instant. However, there were too many rangers, and the enemy had mobilized at least half of the main altar's men. For a moment, the two sides were in a stalemate. The royal guard's advantage was their strong individual combat strength. Wei Chou, Xiahou and the others all raised their weapons and killed in the crowd. The other 18 royal guards also did their best. Their martial souls shone in the forest, and at the same time, clusters of torches were lit, illuminating the surroundings and making the battle even more tragic. Both sides showed no mercy and fought with their lives on the line. Lin Muyu wielded her longsword as she galloped past. Her longsword smashed a shield into pieces and chopped off the ranger's arm. Instantly, the ranger howled in pain as he rolled on the ground. Losing an arm in an instant, the pain was unimaginable. At the same time, a royal guard fell to the ranger's messy swords. More than 100 rangers in the back took out their bows and arrows and started shooting from afar. In the blink of an eye, another 7 or 8 royal guards fell to the ground in pools of blood. Buzz! Lin Muyu opened her hand, and the golden wall of the gourd quickly expanded into a wall in front of everyone. The arrows collided with the wall of the gourd, but they could not penetrate it at all. Looking at the people behind her, Lin Muyu shouted, "Quickly clear the area and retreat." Yes. Wei Chou, Xiahou and the others fought the enemy with all their might. In just a short while, the 300-plus rangers behind them had all turned into corpses. However, it was clear that the royal guards had suffered heavy losses as well. Many of them were lying motionless on the snowy ground. With the golden wall of the gourd in hand, Lin Muyu shouted at the rangers who were shooting arrows in the distance. "We are the royal guards of Lanyan City. You have repeatedly attacked us. Are you really not afraid of death?" In the distance, a silver exalt ranger held a longbow in his hand and said with a cold expression, "You dogs of the Empire, you have killed so many of our brothers, and you still want to leave here alive?" Without saying a word, Lin Muyu opened her right hand and lightning raged. Suddenly, the dragon spirit sword broke through the air and pierced the neck of the silver exalt ranger like lightning. He wanted to continue speaking, but his Adam's apple had completely turned into a pile of minced meat. How could he speak? He fell to the ground with a roar like a wild beast. Lin Muyu raised her hand and caught the longsword that was flipped back to her. She said lightly, "All of you scram if you don't want to be killed." The group of bronze exalt rangers and iron exalt rangers looked at each other. They had already lost their composure. How would they dare to challenge the god of slaughter, Lin Muyu? One by one, They raised their longbows and quickly turned and disappeared into the woods. My lady, Wei Chou urged his horse forward. His face and battle robe were covered in blood. He said, "Do we chase after these traitors?" "No need." Lin Muyu put away the wall of the gourd and took a deep breath to stabilize her restless internal breath. She looked at the corpses on the ground and said, "After they failed their mission, they will soon come after us again. Let's leave quickly. We have already lost a lot of people. I don't want everyone to die here." Yes, break camp and hurry through the night. They hurriedly buried the bodies of their companions. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes, but 21 Imperial guards were killed. 11 were seriously injured, and 32 were lightly injured. Almost half of them were wounded. Only Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, Xiahou, and a few others who were above the third heaven of Earth realm were unharmed. But this was enough to make Lin Muyu's heart ache. Although there were more than 7,000 Imperial guards in Lanyan City, too many of them had died in this battle, and they were all loyal and brave soldiers of the Eagle Nest camp. If one died, there would be one less. Even if they were replaced, they would only be new soldiers. Their combat ability could not be compared at all. In the early hours of the morning, the war horses were snorting violently. Lin Muyu held the reins and kept moving forward at a high speed. They had to reach Lanyan City as soon as possible, or the House of Chivalry would not let them have an easy time. At this point, they could no longer rest for the night. After discussing with Wei Chou and Xiahou, they set off at night. If they did not sleep for a day and a night, they would probably reach Lanyan City directly. Sure enough, the House of Chivalry did not have many horses, so it was impossible for them to use cavalry to chase and kill. In this way, they naturally could not catch up with Lin Muyu and the others. After a day and a night of running, several war horses were so tired that they were foaming at the mouth. Fortunately, on the morning of the third day, they could see the outline of Lanyan City in the distance. But suddenly, the spiritual pulse technique once again sensed the dense aura of experts appearing on the road in front of them. Lin Muyu hurriedly raised his arm and shouted in a low voice, "Draw your swords and prepare for battle." Yes. Xiahou pulled out the spear from the back of the horse, while Wei Chou took out the demon-devouring bow. It was always good to be able to kill a few people before the close combat. After bypassing a cluster of bushes, the aura appeared, but it was not the enemy, but the Imperial guards led by Feng Jixing, Zhang Wei, Luo Lai, and others were camping on both sides of the road waiting. "They're here." Zhang Wei laughed and said, "Lady Lin Muyu and the others have returned safely." Feng Jixing hurriedly mounted his horse and greeted them with a smile. Have you been all right?" Lin Muyu shook her head and said, "What happened, Brother Feng? Why are you waiting for us outside the city?" "It's a long story." Feng Jixing frowned and said, "Let's talk on the way." Yes. The Imperial guards all mounted their horses and protected the group of Imperial guards. Feng Jixing and Zhang Wei stood on either side of Lin Muyu to protect her. They all looked very serious. "What happened?" Lin Muyu asked. Feng Jixing said, "After His Majesty ordered the annihilation of the House of Chivalry, the local officials and troops did not do their job well. The House of Chivalry became more and more arrogant. 3 days ago, Chu Huayin was ordered to escort a batch of weapons back to Lanyan City from Cold Star City. On the way there, he was attacked by the House of Chivalry. The battle was very tragic. More than 300 Imperial guards were killed, and even Chu Huayin himself was injured." Lin Muyu was stunned. God. Brother Chu was injured? Who ambushed him? How could they be so strong that even someone like Brother Chu was injured? Feng Jixing nodded. According to the investigation, the ambushers were from the House of Chivalry in Earth Star Province. They sent a Grand Travel Agent, 3 Grand Travel Agents, and 7 Jin Zuns, a total of more than 2,500 people to participate in the battle. Chu Huayin brought 700 Imperial guards with him. The heavy losses were expected, but old Chu was indeed very strong. The price of him being injured was that the Grand Travel Agent of the House of Chivalry was seriously injured. All 3 Grand Travel Agents were killed, and more than a dozen Jin Zun and Silver Venerable were also killed. As he spoke, Feng Jixing looked at Lin Muyu's expression and said, Were you also attacked along the way?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded slightly. I was attacked once on the way there, and again on the way back. They were also from the House of Chivalry, but I didn't lose that many people. A day ago, 21 Imperial Guards were killed. They didn't send that many people, only about 500 in total. If they had sent more than 2,500 people, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to come back. Feng Jixing took a deep breath. Damn, these bastards from the House of Chivalry are trying to slap His Majesty in the face. What do you mean? In the past 5 days, you and Old Chu weren't the only 2 troops marching on the official road. There were many other troops dispatched, but only the 2 of you were attacked. Moreover, you 2 are also newly conferred by His Majesty as one of the 4 heroes of Lan and Yen, one of the 4 generals of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. The intention of the House of Chivalry is too obvious. Killing either you or Old Chu will damage His Majesty's prestige. Lin Muyu clenched her teeth and said, the House of Chivalry is now openly challenging His Majesty. They are cursing His Majesty as a fatuous ruler and fabricating all kinds of evidence that His Majesty is a tyrant to confuse people. If we let them continue like this, I'm afraid His Majesty will lose the hearts of the people. Isn't that right? Feng Jixing nodded and said, this matter needs to be discussed at length. We will report to His Majesty in detail when we return to Zetian Palace. Yes, how is Brother Chu's injury? Is it serious? It's all right. A few of his ribs are broken. I'm afraid he won't be able to fight for the next half a month. That's good. He can take half a month off and spend more time with Miss Jinxiang. Lin Muyu smiled and said, does Brother Feng also think that Brother Chu and Miss Jinxiang will be a couple? Of course. Feng Jixing raised his gaze and said, they are a perfect match. Chu Huayin is my brother. Of course, I hope that he can find happiness. Zhenxiang is gentle and kind. She can make Old Chu's heart feel at peace. Yes. Lin Muyu smiled and said, Brother Feng, you're not young anymore. Why haven't you thought about your marriage? Feng Jixing was stunned. He shook his head and laughed at himself. I, Feng Jixing, have been living on the edge of a knife all my life. It's better not to be a burden to others. Let's not talk about this. Let's go back to Zetian Palace quickly. Yes, okay. Chapter 209. In the Zetian Palace, purple smoke lingered around the incense burner, and waves of fragrance wafted in the air. There were 2 rows of imperial guards on both sides, but only Qinlei was there. Chu Huaying, the commander of the dragon guards, had already taken leave to recuperate. Feng Jixing and Lin Muyu walked side by side into the main hall. At this moment, Qin Jin, dressed in a dragon robe, came to the throne. He frowned and asked with concern, I heard that you were also attacked. How are you? Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, I'm fine. I only lost 21 brothers of the Imperial Guards. Qin Jin heaved a sigh of relief and said, it's good that you're fine. I can't let 2 of my wind, rain, thunder, and lightning generals get hurt at once. Otherwise, I'm afraid everyone in the world will laugh at me. Feng Jixing said, Your Majesty, the House of Chivalry has been attacked time and time again. This matter cannot be delayed. The Empire can no longer tolerate the House of Chivalry. Qin Jin revealed a hint of anger and said, I also know that the expedition order has already been issued to the governors of the various provinces. But this group of good-for-nothings only know how to receive their salaries, but don't know how to do things. They either say that their generals are sick, or they send troops but don't fight. I really don't know what's the point of raising this group of useless people. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, Your Majesty, in fact, many of the provincial governors and other officials are acquainted with the higher-ups of the House of Chivalry. Some of them are even in cahoots with each other. If we really want to attack them, I'm afraid that it will hurt the interests of these governors. This is probably the biggest reason why they are unwilling to really attack the House of Chivalry. How do you think we should destroy the House of Chivalry? Qin Jin asked with a smile. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, Just send the generals to lead the troops to attack them. If the local generals are unwilling to send troops, then we can directly choose generals from Lanyan City. Qin Jin raised his eyebrows and said, It seems this idea is not bad, but there aren't many generals that can be used in the imperial capital. You can be considered one. General Chu Huai is injured. Feng Jixing is in charge of the imperial capital's defense, and Qin Lei has to protect Zetian Palace Hall. The people that can be used, perhaps Yuan Lian and Ling Feng can be considered candidates? Lin Muyu smiled and said, actually, Feng Jixing's subordinates, Zhang Wei, Luo Lai, and the others are all fierce generals who can take charge of an area. Your Majesty can also put them in an important position. Qin Jin smiled. General Feng, are Luo Lai and Zhang Wei really as you said? Feng Jixing cupped his fists and said, yes, if this subordinate is unable to personally lead the army, Zhang Wei and Luo Lai can indeed lead the army to kill the enemy. All right. Qin Jin patted the armrest of the dragon chair and said, pass down my order. Promote Zhang Wei and Luo Lai to deputy generals. Each of them will lead 5,000 imperial guards to destroy the rebels of the House of Chivalry within 500 miles of Lanyan City. Feng Jixing said, Your Majesty, it is not enough to just destroy the House of Chivalry in the North Ridge province. We must send troops to the surrounding provinces around Lanyan City, such as Earthstar Province, Songnan Province, Sea of Qi Province, and Heaven's Pivot Province. We must wipe out the forces of the House of Chivalry north of the Qinling Mountains in one fell swoop. Yes. Qin Jin narrowed his eyes and said, You are the commander of the Eagle Nest Battalion. It is already winter, and your tasks will be greatly reduced. Are you willing to take advantage of this time to wipe out the rebels in Songnan Province for my imperial father? I am willing. Lin Muyu cupped his fists and bowed. He did not dare to overstep his authority by calling him imperial father. With this kind of relationship, it was fine to call him emperor. Lin Muyu knew his own limits and knew when to advance and when to retreat. Qin Lei, who was at the side, said, Your Majesty, the military strength of the Eagle Nest Battalion is less than 1,000 people, but the rangers in Songnan Province have gathered at least 30,000 people. I am afraid that this number of troops is not enough to wipe out the rebels. Of course I know that. Qin Jin stroked his beard and said with a smile, After the deployment of the Imperial Guard, there are only 20,000 left, and they cannot be used anymore. There are two other armies within the territory of Lanyan City. One is the 90,000-strong Tianchong army, and the other is the 40,000-strong Longquan army that guards the Imperial Mausoleum. Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, which army do you think should be given to you to command? Feng Jixing thought for a moment and said, Although the Tianchong army has 90,000 strong soldiers, they are responsible for guarding the Qihai stronghold. I am afraid the deployment of the Tianchong army is inappropriate. Your Majesty should also know that Duke Lan has 200,000 soldiers in Qihai City. If we move the Tianchong army away, Duke Lan's army will be able to pass through the Qihai stronghold and enter Lanyan City without a hitch. Qin Jin took a deep breath and said, This, we also know. But Duke Lan has always been loyal and devoted. He should not be disloyal. Besides, isn't Xiaoxi still in Lanyan City? Xiaoxi is only. Feng Jixing wanted to say something, but stopped himself. His eyes flickered as he cupped his fists and said, This general only has a suggestion. As for the specifics, I will leave it to your Majesty to decide. Qin Lei, what do you think? Qin Jin looked at Qin Lei. Qin Lei did not have so many misgivings and said bluntly, Although Xiaoxi can move freely in Lanyan City, Grand Duke Tanglan has sent Xiaoxi to live in Lanyan City for so many years in order to express his feelings to your Majesty. He would rather leave his most beloved granddaughter in Lanyan City as a hostage. This has already explained everything. On the other hand, Longquan army is said to guard the Imperial Mausoleum in name, but in reality, it is mutually dependent with the Imperial army. Together, they guard the imperial capital. Therefore, this general believes that Longquan army cannot be moved. However, the Tianchong army can be deployed for use. Qin Jin smiled in satisfaction. This is exactly what I was thinking. How about this? I will immediately write an imperial edict for you, ordering you to head to the Seven Seas Pass and deploy 20,000 elite troops from General Du Hai. After that, you will enter Songnan Province. You must eliminate all the rebels from the House of Chivalry in Songnan Province within a month. Can you do it? Just as Lin Muyu was secretly sighing that Tang Xiaoxi's status in Lanyan City was not as glorious as it seemed on the surface, she raised her head and said with clear eyes, "I cannot guarantee whether I can do it or not, but I will definitely do my best. Your Majesty, I have stayed in the House of Chivalry for a period of time, and even know the filth of the House of Chivalry. Please rest assured, I will definitely do my best." Qin Jin could not help but laugh. "Use words make us very happy. Good, I will immediately write an imperial edict and prepare the tiger seal for you. In addition, I will promote you to be the general of the South, so that you will have the authority to command 20,000 troops." "Many thanks, Your Majesty." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and at the same time asked in a low voice, "The general of the South, just how high is his rank?" Feng Jixing laughed in a low voice and said, "The rank of the general of the South is much higher than your previous rank of General Long Xiang, and your commanding power is captaincy. In short, you can only command 20,000 people if you wear the general of the South's seal. Otherwise, how will you be able to command the generals under you if they are all of a higher rank than you?" Lin Muyu was pleased. "I understand." Not long after, the imperial edict was written. Qin Jin's handwriting was excellent, and even without the emperor's seal, others would probably be able to recognize it. However, with the golden clay seal, it was even more convincing. At this time, an official handed the general of the South seal and token to Qin Jin. Qin Jin walked forward and said in a low voice, "General of the South, Lin Muyu, receive my seal." "Yes, Your Majesty." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and bowed. She lowered her head and opened her hands to receive the seal. Beside the heavy blood-red general seal, there was a golden general token with the word South carved on it. The seal was too heavy and he couldn't bring it along with him at all times, but this token could prove Lin Muyu's identity and status. He couldn't help but feel a little happy. Perhaps it was because the military rank of the Xiang Dragon General was too low that he didn't even have a seal, but now he could finally have his own identity and status. Qin Lei chuckled at the side. "Congratulations to you for being promoted to the rank of captaincy." Lin Muyu replied with a smile. "Thank you, Commander Qin Lei." Qin Jin placed his hand on Lin Muyu's shoulder and said in an extremely gentle voice, "You, my child, no matter the outcome of this battle, you will always be Father's pride. This expedition to the Tsangnan province is just a chance for you to train your troops. Go, be careful along the way. Father and your younger sister will miss you." Qin Jin was the emperor of a generation, but at this moment, the expression he revealed was actually like a father sending off his son who had enlisted in the army. Even Lin Muyu had an illusion that at this moment, Qin Jin's aged appearance actually overlapped with his father Lin Shun's impression. The same prematurely aged weariness, the same loving affection. "I know, father," he said in a low voice. Qin Jin was also startled. He clenched his fists and slowly loosened them. He said, "Go, father will prepare a celebratory feast for you at Zetian Palace." "Yes." Lin Muyu placed the imperial edict and token in his chest pocket, then led his horse out of Zetian Palace. Feng Jixing and Chu Huaying also sent him all the way to the outskirts of the palace. Wei Chou, Xia Hosang, and the others were still waiting for him, so he brought everyone back to the Eagle Nest camp. He did not know how long this trip would take. There were too many things in Lin Muyu's heart that he could not let go, so after dinner he went to visit Chu Yao, then went to the Duke of Seven Seas' residence to chat with Tang Xiaoxi for a while. Although Chu Yao and Tang Xiaoxi could not bear for him to leave, after all, Lin Muyu's current status was different. He was one of the high-ranking generals of the empire, and there were too many things that he had no choice but to do. Life was like the billowing waves of the deep sea, and Lin Muyu could not extricate himself from it. He was very clear that he needed to grow and experience, otherwise, if he was not strong enough, he was afraid that a small disturbance would be enough to consign him to eternal damnation. The grudge with the Divine Marquis residence was enough to explain everything. He needed to obtain status and military power in the Empire's army, otherwise he would be worthless. He refined the perfection elixir for Tang Xiaoxi that night, but he did not have the time to see how she completed the cultivation of the Fire Fox seal. Early the next morning, Lin Muyu led Wei Chou, Xia Hosang, and a total of 60 Imperial Guards out of the Eagle Nest camp. This time, he did not bring too many Imperial Guards, but he brought all the Imperial Guards. Lin Muyu needed this group of people to escort him on this mission. Moreover, would it be successful to use the Northern Ridge Province's army to enter Seongnan Province to eliminate the rebels? Probably not. Unconsciously, the image of a person surfaced in Lin Muyu's mind. Long Qianlin, the person with the highest military power in Seongnan Province, would definitely not let things go too smoothly for him. After all, Seongnan Province, Five Valley City, House of Chivalry, there were too many connections. Chapter 210. The wind and rain drifted across the horizon, connecting heaven and earth into one. The surroundings were eerily cold. Amidst the violent galloping of hooves, the 60 Imperial Guards led by Lin Muyu passed through the coldleaf forest and stepped into the borders of the 7th Sea Pass. Every one of them wore a silver helmet over their head and a white cloak over their face. Their heads and shoulders were already covered in snow, and even their exposed eyelashes were covered in a layer of frost. The 7th Sea Pass was far colder than Lanyan City, and could even be considered a land of bitter cold. Chirp, chirp. With a sudden tug on the reins, Lin Muyu reined in his warhorse so quickly that it almost threw him off. He lifted his cloak, revealing a handsome face covered in frost due to the severe cold. Looking up, he could see a forest of mountains in the distance, and between them was an official road that led straight to the Seven Seas province. At the end of his line of sight was a towering fortress amidst the wind and snow. They had arrived at the 7th Sea Pass. "Sire." Wei Chou pointed ahead and said, "Look, the scouts from the Tianchong Corp are coming." Not long after, silhouettes appeared one after another in the blizzard. They were all heavily armored soldiers of the Empire. Dang, dang, dang. A group of scouts drew their swords and surrounded Lin Muyu and the others. The leader of the group, a middle-aged general, shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass the 7 seas?" Lin Muyu took out his token and said, "The newly appointed general of the south, Lin Muyu, has come on His Majesty's edict to seek an audience with General Du Hai of the Tianchong Corp." "You're Lin Muyu?" The middle-aged general raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "To think that such a legendary character in the imperial capital would actually look like a pale-faced young man. How strange. Ha, since you're the general of the south, then come with me. I'll take you to see our clan's general." "Many thanks." The scouts turned around and raised the Tianchong Corp's flag high in the wind and snow, shouting, "Clear the way." The sound of horse hooves grew louder as about 200 riders approached the 7 Seas Pass. As they got closer and closer to the fortress, Lin Muyu looked up and could not help but marvel at the fortress's defensive capabilities. The walls were almost entirely made of huge stones and were about 50 meters tall. It was not an exaggeration to call it a natural stronghold. The walls even looked like they were made of molten steel. The walls were filled with sharp knives that were embedded into the walls, making it impossible to climb them. In other words, the only way to conquer the fortress was to break the gate. However, the gate was a giant gate made of pure iron. Ordinary attacks seemed to have no effect at all. "Open the door." The middle-aged general raised the token in his hand high up. Amidst the snowstorm, the soldiers on the walls waved their hands, and the gate slowly opened. Accompanied by the sound of metal chains twisting, the meter-thick steel gate slowly opened. Inside the city, a group of soldiers wielding sabers and swords stood in formation, ready for battle. The faces of these Sky Crest Legion soldiers were filled with fighting spirit and training. "General Lin, come with me." "Thank you." Riding on the war horses, the group of people followed the scout general along the main road in the stronghold. Wei Chou and Xia Hoseng looked left and right at everything around them. Both of them had a trace of shock in their eyes. How was this a pass? This was clearly a strong city. The scout general seemed to be able to tell what they were thinking. With a slight smile, he waved his hand and said, "General, as you can see, the 7 Seas Pass is impregnable. It is known as the world's #1 fortress. There are many weapons and rations stored in this city, enough to last an army of 90,000 for 7 years. In order to build this 7 Seas Pass, the previous emperor spent a total of 21 years. Lin Muyu nodded. "It's a miracle." "Huh." The scout general's face was filled with pride. General Du Hai is known as the leader of the Empire's 7 divine generals. He has guarded the 7 Seas Pass for nearly 10 years, and there has never been a single mishap. 10 years. Lin Muyu was stunned. The Empire's 7 divine generals? That's right. The scout general rubbed his nose awkwardly and said with a smile. But this title was decided by the brothers in the army. His Majesty hasn't approved it yet. Just treat it as a joke. Lin Muyu's interest was piqued. She asked, "May I ask which 7 generals are they?" According to the order of ranking they are Du Hai Xiang Yu, Feng Jixing, Qin Lei Feng Tianan Ji Yao Lin Yu. My great general's ranking is even higher than Xiang Wentian's descendant, Xiang Yu. Lin Muyu smiled and didn't say much. However, she was even more interested in this Du Hai. What kind of person would the current number 1 general of the Qin Empire be like? At this moment, they arrived at the second wall of the 7 Seas Pass. A soldier's voice came from above. "Open the Tiger Gate." Creak. The sound of metal chains twisting was extremely ear-piercing. The gate inlaid with a golden tiger head slowly rose. Lin Muyu and the others quickly urged their horses in. Finally, they arrived at the center of the fortress. Inside the Tiger Gate was a large hall. Although it was solemn and dignified, it could also be said to be simple. Piles of flames illuminated the interior of the hall brightly. On both sides of the hall were soldiers of the Imperial Guard camped with their hands on the hilts of their swords. Lin Muyu's gaze swept across the hall. There were at least 3,000 of them. It was truly a tight security. In the center of the hall, a group of generals stood on both sides, drinking wine. The scout general walked forward and reported, "Great General, General of the South Lin Muyu of Lanyan City, requests an audience with His Majesty's Imperial Edict." "Let him in. It's been hard on you. General Lu, you may leave." "Yes, Great General." Lin Muyu led Wei Chou and Xiahou Sang in. Immediately, the Tianchong army generals on both sides glared at them, creating an invisible pressure. Some of these generals even had the rank of captaincy, with 2 golden hexagrams on their necks. It was truly a frightening sight. The 40-year-old general sitting in the middle had 3 golden hexagrams and 7 to 8 scars crisscrossed across his face. Staring at Lin Muyu with a fiery gaze, he suddenly stood up, cupped his fists and said with a smile, "General Lin has come from afar. Please forgive Du Hai for not welcoming you earlier." Lin Muyu cupped his fists respectfully and said, "Great General, please forgive this subordinate. I have come with His Majesty's Imperial Edict. Please receive it, Great General." Yes. At the mention of His Majesty, the wild and untamed look on Du Hai's face was instantly swept away. He hurriedly walked up to Lin Muyu and knelt down on one knee, cupped his fists and said, "General Du Hai receives the Imperial Edict." The other 20-odd generals also knelt down one after another, their faces filled with solemnity. Lin Muyu took out the Imperial Edict and read it out. Great General Du Hai is to assign 20,000 elite soldiers to General Lin Muyu of the South to head to Tsangnan Province to exterminate the remnants of the House of Chivalry in the mountains. The time limit is 60 days. Regardless of whether the mission is exterminated or not, Lin Muyu must return the 20,000 soldiers to the 7 Seas Pass. Du Hai is not to be negligent in any matter that is required. Du Hai was stunned. Raising his head, he asked, "His Majesty wants this general to lend you soldiers?" Lin Muyu nodded. "Yes, General. Please receive the Imperial Edict?" "Yes." Du Hai raised his hand to receive the Imperial Edict. After reading it, he smiled and said, "General Lin Muyu is a young hero. How rare. To think that when I, Du Hai, was your age, I was still a small lieutenant, but General has already become a general of a town and received His Majesty's favor. You can command 20,000 soldiers. Many of the commanders in the Empire's army are not as powerful as you. How enviable." Lin Muyu did not know how to respond to his lukewarm words, and could only reply respectfully, "Great General, you are flattering me. I am only indebted to His Majesty's undeserved favor. May I know when Great General will be able to assign these 20,000 elites to me?" "There is no hurry. 20,000 people is not a small number. We need to carefully count them. Moreover, I still need to provide war horses, weapons, rations and many other matters for these 20,000 soldiers. I will hand them over tomorrow morning. What does General Lin think? Good. Thank you, Great General. You're welcome. We are all serving the Empire. There is no need to distinguish between us. Come, General Lin and the other 2 generals, have a seat. The weather is cold. Drink a cup of wine to warm your body. Thank you. It was already dusk, and everyone was slightly tipsy. Some of the generals were already dead drunk. Lin Muyu remained clear-headed the entire time. Right at this moment, Wei Qiu walked over and whispered into his ear. Master, this subordinate just went down to check on the process of selecting soldiers. They are simply bullying us too much. They only gave us some old soldiers and new soldiers. Some of the old soldiers are already close to 60 years old. How can they still fight? Are you sure? Absolutely. Wei Qiu raised his head and glanced at Du Hai. This empire's great general is only SOC. Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, all right, let's not talk about it anymore. If they are veterans, then so be it. It's not a big deal. Veterans are also a kind of intangible wealth. It's fine. I was worried that they wouldn't be willing to lend me their men. It's already good enough that they are willing to lend me their men. After all, these 90,000 men are also Du Hai's flesh and blood. Yes, my lord is right. After drinking for a while, Du Hai's eyes looked drowsy. He smiled and said, dare I ask General Lin, have you ever led troops in the Empire before? Lin Muyu shook her head. No. Oh. Du Hai couldn't help but smile and said, His Majesty actually dares to hand over 20,000 men to someone who has never led troops before. As expected, he thinks very highly of you. As he said this, he muttered to himself for a moment before smiling. General Lin, I have something to say, but I'm not sure if I should say it. Great General, please speak. Since General has never led troops before, then this old man will choose someone from the army to join the army. This person will follow the army and give you advice. How about it? This. Lin Muyu thought for a moment. Seeing Du Hai's if you don't let me lead, I won't give you any men look, she could only nod helplessly. All right then, as General wishes. Ha, that's good. At this time, everyone had eaten and drank to their fill. Du Hai immediately stood up and said, Generals, since you have eaten and drunk your fill, then return to your camps to rest. Tomorrow morning, you will wake up to train the troops. Yes, General. The group of generals stood up and took their leave. General Lin Muyu, please stay. Du Hai suddenly said with a smile. Lin Muyu didn't know what he was up to. She stood there in shock and watched as Wei Qiu and Xia Hosang went to wait outside the tent. Great General, what's the matter? He asked. Du Hai muttered to himself, his eyes filled with coldness. He sneered and said, The 90,000 men in the 7 seas were raised by me, Du Hai. It can be said that every one of them is my brother. To ask me to hand over these brothers of mine, I really can't bear to. Lin Muyu, if you want my 20,000 men, that's fine. But first, I Du Hai see what you're really capable of. What do you think? Lin Muyu's eyes were filled with savagery. She knew that things wouldn't go so smoothly. Du Hai laughed and raised his hand to draw a long saber into his hand. He said, Take 3 of my saber strikes. If you can't even take these 3 strikes, then there's no need for you to lead your troops into battle. All right. Lin Muyu raised her hand and unsheathed the dragon spirit sword. The sound of the sword resonated around the tent. Not good, they're going to make a move. Wei Qiu said with a frown. Xia Hosang took a deep breath and said, Don't worry. Although Du Hai is at the 3rd heaven of the heaven state, my lord might not lose. Also, Du Hai wouldn't dare to do anything to Lord. I hope so. Chapter 211. Heh. With a shout, Du Hai's entire aura changed rapidly. Endless do qi surged out of his body and his long saber let out a series of sharp whistles. One after another, milky white do qi spirits surrounded the long saber. This was the sign of the 3rd heaven of the heavenly realm, condensing do qi. Do qi spirit was the do qi spirit, and could greatly increase the destructive power of do qi. This was also the sharpness of the 3rd heaven of the heavenly realm. Du Hai's eyes were filled with arrogance as he laughed. My saber technique is not like Feng Jixing's wind saber technique. Du Hai's saber technique is a school of its own and is only refined for killing. Come take my first saber, Thousand Army Chaos. A mighty strike swept over. Du Hai's attack was definitely not simple. Lin Muyu could feel the endless power contained in this saber, and did not dare to be careless. She quickly raised her Do Qi to the limit and quickly added on the black tortoise shell, dragon scale wall and green rock armor. A thick Do Qi armor also appeared on the surface of her body. At the same time, she held the dragon soul sword with both hands and raised it vertically. Her Do Qi surged to block Du Hai's attack. Bang! There was a loud sound of energy colliding. The black tortoise shell instantly shattered and cracks appeared on the dragon scale wall. As expected, defense alone was not enough to block Du Hai's attack. The long saber collided with the dragon soul sword with a ding sound. Lin Muyu was forced to take a few steps back. She quickly lowered her center of gravity and stood firmly. She looked at Du Hai with a serious expression. The black tortoise shell quickly reformed under the recovery ability. However, it seemed that it was too late to block Du Hai's second attack. Oh! Seeing that Lin Muyu had actually received the first attack unscathed, a trace of astonishment flashed across Du Hai's face. He said, "One of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, Lin Muyu is indeed not bad. Hey, take my second saber, Battle Formation Dance." The long saber was waved for the second time. This time, a total of 4 Do Qi were condensed. The long saber descended from the sky and quickly blew out the surrounding lights. It also plunged the entire central army hall into darkness. However, the dragon spirit sword in Lin Muyu's hand shone brightly. This time he did not intend to defend, nor could he defend at all. The 7 luminaries' profound energy rapidly flowed into the longsword, and the blood-colored demonic energy quickly lingered around the blade. Lin Muyu lowered her body slightly, and suddenly exploded. The longsword rushed upwards, and this move was very similar to Feng Jixing's Devil Blade Swallowing Heaven. In fact, it was more or less stolen from Feng Jixing. Clang! A dazzling spark exploded in the air. The dragon spirit sword was so sharp that it actually forcefully deflected Du Hai's second attack. However, Lin Muyu did not feel good. Both her arms were numb, and the blood in her body was in turmoil. She spun and landed on the ground. She retreated more than 10 meters and hit a stone pillar before stabilizing herself. On the other hand, Du Hai was much calmer. He floated to the ground, and the long saber in his hand was still enshrouded with Do Qi. He looked at Lin Muyu without a change in expression. However, Du Hai's heart was not as calm as he looked on the surface. At this moment, his heart was in turmoil. He did not know when such a young expert had risen within the borders of the empire. In terms of cultivation, he was not the least bit inferior to Feng Jixing and Qin Lei. It was no wonder that this brat could be ranked second among the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning 4 generals. Furthermore, goddammit, this brat actually used a gourd. What kind of martial spirit was that? In Du Hai's view of the world, plant-type martial spirits were all trash. The strongest plant-type martial spirit was the heavenly dragon vine of the Ouyang branch of the Heaven's Pivot Province. But what the hell was this brat's gourd? For a moment, Du Hai's understanding of martial spirits had been subverted. After the subversion, it brought about fury. He suddenly swung the saber in his hand to one side, and the 5 Do Ling once again encircled the blade. He chuckled and said, "General Lin's cultivation is indeed astonishing. Come, please receive this old man's third slash, beheading the chaotic army." Wang. The long saber in Du Hai's hand actually started to spin, bringing with it a spiral force. He had already released his hand, and the Do Qi in his palm maintained the connection with the saber. Impressively, this was the legendary. Using Qi to control the saber? Lin Muyu was shocked. This move seemed to achieve the same result as her own dragon flame spiral break, using the spiral force to penetrate the opponent's defense. However, by using this move, did Du Hai have the intention to kill her? No matter what, she mustn't die. In the next moment, Lin Muyu released her palm. Instantly, a raging flame pulled the dragon's soul sword, and it started spinning rapidly in the air. It was almost exactly the same as Du Hai's move. The golden gourd glowed brilliantly, providing a large amount of flame energy to Lin Muyu. At the same time, the constellation of all living beings was condensed on the blade. She had to use her true strength. Otherwise, dying under this slash from Du Hai wouldn't be worth it. Dragon Flame Spiral Break plus 3 Luminaries Calamity. The two of them raised their strength to their peak, causing the entire main hall to be illuminated by the flames and the white light from the Do Chi. In fact, the gale generated by the Do Chi blew open the curtains of the main tent. The soldiers outside looked over and were all dumbfounded as they started to discuss among themselves. Heavens, this is the first time I've seen the great general facing an enemy so seriously. That Lin Muyu brat is really not simple. He actually managed to force the great general to use his chi to control the saber. I think that Lin Muyu is finished. The great general's slash will definitely chop off his head. Not necessarily. That brat's aura doesn't lose to the great general at all. Right at this moment, the saber and sword finally clashed with destructive force, and a resounding boom rang out as powerful battle spirits wreaked havoc before crashing directly into Lin Muyu's suit of battle armor. Puffed! He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated with his sword. He crashed heavily into a stone pillar and fell to the ground. He knelt on one knee and looked extremely pathetic. Du Hai, on the other hand, stood majestically at his original position. With a kung sound, the long blade spun rapidly in the air and pierced into the stone floor in front of him. The spiraling force of the two of them surged up into the sky, directly tearing off the roof of the central army hall. Pieces of tiles fell down with a crackling sound, but were all bounced off by Du Hai's Do Chi armor. Damn it, this stinking brat. Du Hai's face was a little pale. It was true that he had managed to force Lin Muyu back, but he didn't even have the strength to wield his saber. He had challenged Lin Muyu to a battle of a higher cultivation rank than him, but this was the outcome that he had been dealt, so it appeared that he had lost. Slap! Du Hai forcefully swallowed the blood that was welling up in his throat as he grabbed onto his saber with one hand. General Lin Muyu, are you alright? Lin Muyu had the recovery ability of the Golden Gourd, and her martial soul was constantly healing her body, so she naturally wasn't too severely injured. She stood up with her sword in her hand and cupped her fist in a salute with a smile. Thank you for your guidance, great general. I've lost. Lin Muyu's words were very magnanimous, causing Du Hai to feel a little ashamed. However, he couldn't lose face for the great general, so he walked forward and patted Lin Muyu on the shoulder. Smiling, he said, among the younger generation, there are less than 3 people who have the same level of cultivation as you, general. Work hard and you will also become a famous general of this generation. Lin Muyu nodded humbly, saying, Great general, this general has suffered some internal injuries and will return to the barracks to rest and recover. Good. Men, bring General Lin Muyu back to the barracks to rest. This battle had actually allowed Lin Muyu to gain some goodwill from Du Hai, so it seemed like it was worth it. After a night, in the early hours of the next morning, Lin Muyu's strength had once again reached its peak. Her injuries had completely healed, and after the battle with Du Hai, her strength seemed to have increased by a notch. Perhaps this was how experts were like, only through repeated life and death experiences could they improve. The wind and snow had already stopped, and the 20,000-strong army in the stronghold had already finished their preparations. Of these 20,000 people, there were 5,000 cavalry, while the other 15,000 were foot soldiers. Their marching speed wasn't very fast, and based on the speed of 100 li a day, it would probably take more than half a month for them to reach Cangnan province. This caused Lin Muyu to have a headache. It looked like she would have to split her forces, with the cavalry leading the way and the foot soldiers bringing up the rear. General, this is the tiger tally, please take good care of it. A deputy general handed the pale gold tiger tally to Lin Muyu. If she wanted to command this 20,000-strong army, she would have to rely on this small tiger tally. Come to think of it, it was really laughable. Lin Muyu nodded, her gaze landing on the army. Just as Wei Chou had said, at least 30% of this group of people were veterans, and 30% were new soldiers. Only the remaining 40% could be considered as true elites, but she couldn't care too much about it. At this moment, a man dressed in a black robe with 2 gold stars on his collar urged his horse over. He looked to be around 30 years of age, with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes. Cupping his fists, he said respectfully, "General Lin, this one is Shen Yang, one of the 11 adjunct officers of the Tianchong Army, with the rank of Chiliarch. I'm here to await your orders." This person was the adjunct sent by Du Hai. Lin Muyu smiled and cupped his fists, saying, "You've worked hard, Lord Shen. Please enter the ranks." "Thank you, General." Lin Muyu's spirit meridian art fluctuated slightly, and she immediately saw through this Shen Yang's strength. He was only a battle spirit, at the second layer of the mortal realm. There wasn't much difference between him and the average person. It seemed like this guy relied on his intelligence to make a living. "General, when do we set off?" Shen Yang asked respectfully. Lin Muyu said, "We set off immediately. 5,000 cavalry with 5 days' worth of rations will go first, followed by 15,000 infantry. What does Lord Shen Yang think?" Shen Yang was startled, saying, "General wants to split the army?" "Yes, otherwise we won't be able to make it to the 60-day deadline." "Very well. Then Lord will lead the cavalry first, and this subordinate will lead the infantry. Where should we rendezvous?" "Silver Fir City." "Yes." Silver Fir City was a small city close to the north of Songnan Province, but it was also the city closest to the Guild of Chivalry's headquarters in Songnan Province. Choosing Silver Fir City as the resting point for this 20,000-strong army was definitely the right choice. Early in the morning, the sound of iron hooves rang out. 5,000-plus cavalry under the personal command of Lin Muyu swiftly left the Fortress of Seven Seas, heading straight for the southeast. Shen Yang stayed behind to dispatch the infantry out of the city. He raised his head and glanced at the second floor of the central hall. Du Hai was standing there, looking at him with eyes like torches. "Don't worry, great general." Shen Yang cupped his fists and smiled, saying, "This subordinate will definitely bring them all back." The corner of Du Hai's mouth rose. "Then I'll have to trouble Lord Adjunct." Chapter 212. 2 days later, the cavalry regiment passed by dragon-seeking forests Dragon Rock Mountain. Looking from afar, the 3 blood-red words Dragon Rock Mountain appeared on the towering stone wall. From afar, they could almost see the fluttering flag on Dragon Rock. It was the flag of the Longdan Army camp. At the same time, at the foot of Dragon Rock Mountain, the scene of a village appeared. All the houses were newly built, and many civilians had moved here. There was even a market in the village center at noon. The accompanying Tianchong Army captaincy, Qiying, looked up at Dragon Rock Mountain and asked, "General, it is said that there is a mercenary group called Longdan Army Camp on this mountain range. They are quite powerful. Since we are passing by, should we go up the mountain and borrow some weapons and provisions from this Longdan Army camp?" He grinned wickedly. Lin Muyu shook her head. "No need. You can camp at the foot of the mountain and rest for a while. I will go up the mountain to discuss with the Longdan Army camp and invite them to go to Songnan Province to destroy the House of Chivalry. Otherwise, I'm afraid we may not be able to do it with just our 5,000 cavalry." "What?" Qiying was stunned and hurriedly said, "General, you must not. Although this Longdan Army camp is registered in the capital, but the mercenaries are cruel and arrogant. I'm afraid it will be dangerous for you to go up the mountain alone." "Don't worry, it will be fine. Set up camp here, and do not disturb the civilians along the way." "Yes. General, please be careful." "Okay." Lin Muyu only led Wei Chou and Xiahou up the mountain. However, she found that the Longdan Army camp was getting stronger and stronger. The mercenaries were no longer as unruly as before. Instead, they were in high spirits. Luo Yu and Fengxi's training methods were evident. Not long after, Luo Yu and Fengxi walked out of the meeting hall with radiant faces. They greeted her with a respectful smile. "Madam, you are here." "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded and asked, "How is the development of the Longdan Army camp recently?" Luo Yu smiled and said, "Everything is fine. We've cleared out all the wandering mercenary groups and the House of Chivalry's forces within a 500-mile radius, excluding the Flame Dragon mercenary group. We've already expanded our numbers to 5,417 people. More than 5,000. Lin Muyu grinned from ear to ear. How about the war horses and weapons? Luo Yu cupped his fists and said, everyone is equipped with a warhorse and a weapon of varying lengths. These 5,000 people are cavalry when mounted and infantry when dismounted. Don't worry about their battle prowess. That's good. Lin Muyu smiled complacently and said, immediately select 5,000 people, bring 3 days' worth of dry rations, and follow me into Seongnan province to train the troops. Oh. Luo Yu was stunned. Where does Sir want to attack? Purge all the forces of the House of Chivalry in Seongnan province. So that's how it is. This subordinate will immediately gather the troops. All right. Less than an hour later, 5,000 elite Longdan army camp mercenaries had gathered at the top of the mountain, all mounted on their horses. The scale was unprecedented, and these people's weapons and war horses were even better than the Tianchong armies. It was good to be rich. Descend the mountain. Raising the flag, the dragon-shaped image fluttered in the air. It was truly a beautiful sight. When they reached the foot of the mountain, Qiying raised his spear and mounted his horse from afar, shouting, the enemy is attacking, prepare to defend. The Tianchong army's heavy cavalry all mounted their horses, holding their spears to the top of their war horses' heads, each of them brimming with killing intent, as they prepared to welcome the attack from the Longdan army camp. But Lin Muyu urged her horse forward, shouting, General Qiying, they're on our side, it's fine. Qiying was surprised, then smiled. General is so brave, you really managed to convince these Longdan army camp mercenaries? Wei Chou came forward, smiling faintly. They're your men to begin with, there's no need to convince them. All right, let's go to Kathaya City. Yes. Just like that, the 10,000 heavy cavalry left the borders of Lanyan City and headed straight for Seongnan province. 2 days later, they entered Seongnan province, and could already see the small city of Cathay City in the distance. 2 messengers galloped over to inform the new city lord. Lin Muyu had mixed feelings. The last time she'd left Kathaya City, she and Chu Yao had fled from Huatian and his son's pursuit. She hadn't expected that she'd come to Kathaya City with over 10,000 men, and that she'd even become the general of the south. Not long after, a group of people galloped out of the city, one dressed in the garb of a civil official, the other a military official. This humble one is the governor of Kathaya City, Zhang Yida. Greetings, my lord. This humble one is the commander of Kathaya City's garrison, Wang He. Greetings, general. Both of them wore extremely respectful expressions, and Lin Muyu didn't find it strange at all. The Qin Empire was very strict about the hierarchy of military ranks, and her position as the general of the south was almost godlike in this small city. Zhang Yida's face was full of flattery as he dismounted and kneeled on the ground, smiling. My lord, as the emperor's adopted son, it is this lowly one's greatest honor to have you grace Kathaya City with your presence. If my lord does not mind, please follow this lowly one into the city. This lowly one has already prepared a feast to welcome my lord's arrival. Wang He also cupped his fists. Please enter the city, my lord. Their words and actions were very cordial, but Lin Muyu only felt boundless coldness from them. She smiled slightly. There's no need, the army will not enter the city, and we will not disturb the citizens. We will set up camp in the 7-star forest outside the city. City governor, please immediately prepare food, water, and horse rations for us. I'll be relying on you for this. Zhang Yida was stunned. My lord, you are not entering the city? Yes, I am not entering the city. Lin Muyu respectfully cupped her fists and smiled. I will have to trouble the governor and General Wang He. Please immediately prepare for us. Yes. Zhang Yida and Wang He were flabbergasted, and they hurriedly led their men away. Lin Muyu watched them leave indifferently, saying, Set up camp in the 7-star forest nearby, do not occupy the main road. Prepare to cook, and rest well today. We will attack the headquarters of the House of Chivalry tomorrow morning. Qiying cupped his fists respectfully and said, Yes, General. At night, the sky was filled with stars, and the temperature dropped sharply. It seemed like it was going to snow again. The men Lin Muyu had brought with her this time were all cavalry, and they had to end the battle as quickly as possible. Otherwise, even the fodder for the war horses would be a huge problem. Kathaya City was just a small city, and it could support 10,000 warhorses for a day or two, but it would be a stretch to say the least for a month. Under the flickering firelight, Wei Chou unfurled a map of Tsangnan Province and pointed at the red mark on it, saying, "The headquarters of Tsangnan Province is located on this mountain ridge called Fire Axe Mountain. Fire Axe Mountain is not tall, but its terrain is extremely steep and shaped like a fire axe, hence the name. According to my intelligence, there are currently more than 4,200 members of the House of Chivalry on Fire Axe Mountain, 1 Grand Wandering Chess Envoy, and 2 Wandering Chess Envoys." Cough cough. "My lord, you killed one of the Wandering Chess Envoys last time, so these people should hate us very much." Qiying said, "The House of Chivalry has many eyes and ears. They will definitely know that we have come to Kathia City in such a grandiose manner, so we must plan slowly. I think, why don't we wait for Lord Xinyang to arrive with 15,000 foot soldiers and attack together?" "It's too late." Lin Muyu shook her head. "By the time the foot soldiers arrive, it will be too late. Send some people to scout the terrain and gather intelligence tonight, and prevent them from setting up an ambush along the way. Tomorrow morning, we will attack the mountain." "Yes." After Qi Ying and the other generals dispersed, Wei Chao's eyes dimmed as he asked, "My lord, why are you in such a hurry to attack the mountain? This doesn't seem like your personality." Lin Muyu exhaled a mouthful of mist, saying, "If we delay, the situation will change. The House of Chivalry and Five Valleys City are inextricably linked, so we must finish this battle quickly. Otherwise, if Five Valleys City reacts, it will not be so easy for us to destroy the House of Chivalry. Governor Hu Tianning dares to openly defend the House of Chivalry. No, he doesn't dare, but he won't let things go too smoothly for us. Yes, your subordinate understands." The next morning, the army of 10,000 set off for Fire Axe Mountain. The mountain was less than 200 li from Kathia City, and only half a day's journey for cavalry. Lin Muyu's gaze fell on the crowd. The Sky Rush Army's heavy cavalry were equipped with small round shields, long spears and sharp swords, and were skilled in close combat. The heavy cavalry of the Longdan Army camp were equipped with powerful bows. This was an absolute advantage. If they wanted to kill without losing any casualties, they had to be equipped with long-range weapons. The mercenaries of the Longdan Army camp were skilled with bows and horses, and seemed more suited to fighting in the mountains. Along the way, the scouts frequently reported that the terrain had been surveyed, and it was almost impossible for the House of Chivalry to ambush them. They arrived at the foot of Fire Axe Mountain before noon. Looking up, Fire Axe Mountain looked like a fiery red battle axe lying between heaven and earth. The rocks were crimson, and banners fluttered in the air in the middle of the mountain. Houses stood in great numbers, and a stone fortress was built at the mountain gate to defend against any invasion. It was difficult for war horses to travel in the mountains, much less on a 45-degree slope. Qi Ying's brows furrowed. "General, how do we attack?" "There is no need to attack." Lin Muyu rode on a warhorse and smiled. "I have already received information that although there is sufficient food on the mountain, water is brought up from the spring at the foot of the mountain. Their headquarters has more than 4,000 soldiers, and the daily consumption of water is very large. If we surround them and do not attack, they will definitely descend the mountain to fight us within 3 days." As she said that, Lin Muyu smiled, and said with confidence, "They chose Fire Axe Mountain as their base, but they forgot about the water source. They are digging their own graves." Qi Ying was shocked, and cupped his fists. "I did not expect General to be so powerful at such a young age. No need to flatter me." Lin Muyu raised her hand, and said, "Surround the mountain, and have the archers ready at any time. Wait for them to descend the mountain themselves." "Yes, General." Everyone's face was filled with joy. Originally, many of the soldiers thought that forcefully attacking the mountain would result in heavy losses, but now it seemed that with a wise commander like Lin Muyu, there was no need for them to suffer heavy losses. The art of war had said that an army was based on food, but if it was water, it would be the same. Lin Muyu thought that he only had a superficial understanding of the art of war, but compared to the great wandering chess envoy on the mountain, he could be said to have a deep understanding of the art of war. Chapter 213. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. The people of the House of Chivalry had only managed to shoot a few arrows down the mountain. They could not even hit the feet of the Longden Army camp mercenaries before they fell to the ground powerlessly. However, this kind of provocation came again and again, as if they were very tired. At dusk, there was a sudden commotion on the mountain. The mountain gate opened wide, and about 100 or so rangers roared as they charged down the mountain on their warhorses. Release the arrows. Under Luo Yu's order, the Longden Army camp and Tianchong Army that were lying in ambush in the forest all fired their arrows. In an instant, the 100 or so people who came down from the mountain screamed and fell to the ground. Only a few managed to escape. Wei Chou led a horse over and pointed at the wooden bucket on the horses, but saying, "As my lord expected, the water on the mountain has already dried up. This group of people wants to kill their way out and snatch the water." Lin Muyu nodded. "Yes, keep the archers on guard and dig a trap behind the first line of defense. Wait for their next wave of attack." Qi Ying was stunned. "General, how can you be so sure that they will come down the mountain a second time to snatch the water?" Lin Muyu smiled confidently. "It's very simple. These 100 or so people are just to test how many people we have surrounding the Fire Axe Mountain. In the next wave of attack, they will use at least 2,000 people. Therefore, our first line of archers will not be able to defend at all. They will dig a trap to ensure that our losses are minimized." "So that's how it is." Qi Ying raised her eyebrows and smiled. "General is really meticulous." At this time, a white bird suddenly flew over their heads, the sound of its wings flapping faintly. Lin Muyu suddenly raised her head, her heart moved, and she said, "Wei Chou, shoot it down." "Yes." Wei Chou raised his hand and knocked an arrow. With a so sound, the demon-devouring bow shot an arrow into the sky and killed the bird in the blink of an eye. A soldier of the Tianchong army picked up the bird's corpse and handed it over. "General." Lin Muyu took the bird corpse and looked at its feet. Sure enough, there was a small letter tube. She took out a piece of paper and saw a few simple words written on it. "Reinforcements will arrive in 2 days." Wei Chou frowned. "Sir, will the House of Chivalry send reinforcements? Could it be the people from their branch altar?" "I don't know." Lin Muyu felt a burst of anger and said, "Wei Chou, this messenger bird is coming from the direction of Five Valleys City. Arrange for the sharpshooters in the camp to watch this direction day and night. Shoot down any messenger bird that flies by." Wei Chou smiled and nodded. "Understood." In the blink of an eye, it was night. The sky was filled with dark clouds and the moon and stars were dim. Even Qi Ying could feel the biting cold murderous intent. "This night will not be easy." Lin Muyu warmed himself by the bonfire and smiled. "Let everyone be more spirited." Yes. In the early hours of the morning, a loud noise came from the mountain. The sound of horse hooves was loud. The House of Chivalry was attacking again. The moment the mountain gate opened, countless rangers with wooden shields and longswords rushed in. Their faces were full of anger as they shouted, "Kill! Kill these dogs of the Empire!" There were about 1,500 rangers on foot, and behind them were about 500 cavalrymen. It seemed like they wanted to use the wooden shields to wear down the arrows, and then the cavalrymen would charge. Lin Muyu stood under a towering tree, a thin layer of frost on his shoulders. He sneered. "In your dreams." Qi Ying mounted his horse and smiled. "General, it's our turn to charge now, right?" "Yes, we will fight when they break through the second blockade." "Yes." The torches on the Fire Axe Mountain were connected, and a large number of rangers charged out. Their battle cries shook the heavens, and their momentum was terrifying. "Fire!" Wei Chou shouted again. The longbow in his hand quickly shot out an arrow made of light. With a whoosh, it pierced through the bodies of 3 rangers. In the entire army, perhaps only Wei Chou had such arm strength and accuracy. Squeak squeak. The bow in Lin Muyu's hand let out a cry of pain. Suddenly an arrow was shot out. The arrowhead was imbued with pure do qi, and it directly pierced through a ranger's wooden shield. The explosive power of the arrow was shocking. "General is brave." The group of Tianchong soldiers were also very encouraged. Arrows rained down, and in the blink of an eye, the people from the House of Chivalry were killed. However, most of the arrows landed on the wooden shields, and did not cause any damage. In the blink of an eye, the people from the House of Chivalry were within 20 meters of them. Retreat! Lin Muyu ordered. At the same time, she raised her hand and threw out 4 little magic sonar blades. They flew in 4 different directions and became invisible. After piercing through the bodies of several rangers, Lin Muyu slowly retracted her strength. Suddenly, the little magic sonar blades rotated rapidly in the air to form a magic sonar blade. With a schwa-schwa sound, it killed another dozen people in the crowd before flying back. Under the light of the torches, a ranger surrounded by pure Zhenqi shouted, "Kill! Kill these dogs of the Empire!" The sound of hooves could be heard. The cavalry of the House of Chivalry had also arrived. They brandished their spears and charged forward. However, when they reached the second blockade, they successively charged into the trap. Screams of pain rang out as hundreds of people and horses fell into the trap that had been dug beforehand. The Tianchong soldiers and Longdan army camp soldiers naturally rushed forward and stabbed with their spears. Blood splattered everywhere. They had truly killed everyone. Swoosh! Lin Muyu took out the pear blossom spear from her Qianquan pouch. With a shake of the spear shaft, the spear had instantly produced a pear blossom that was enshrouded in icy mist in the night sky. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice, "Kill!" The sound of hooves could be heard. They had avoided the trap area. Under his leadership, more than 1,000 cavalrymen from Longdan army camp charged forward. Before they even got close, they had already launched a round of spear-piercing attacks. The destructive power of the spear was far greater than that of the arrows. The enemies were immediately scared out of their wits. When it came to close combat, the enemies were already scared out of their wits and became the targets of the cavalrymen. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood. This battle lasted for more than an hour before it ended. The final result was that the House of Chivalry had lost another game envoy. Only about 200 of the defeated soldiers managed to escape up the mountain. The mountain path was littered with corpses. It was a tragic sight. Wei Chao's face was filled with excitement. He smiled and said, "This time we will teach these traitors a lesson." Qiying wiped the blood off her spear and said proudly, "I'm afraid they won't dare to go down the mountain to fetch water anymore." "How many men did we lose?" Lin Muyu asked as he rode past with his pear blossom spear in hand. Luo Yu cupped his fists and said, "The Longdan army camp lost close to 20 men, and the Tianchong army lost close to 100 men. It's all thanks to Sir's divine foresight. Otherwise, we would have lost even more men." Got it, Lin Muyu frowned. Actually, he had planned to have 0 casualties. Unfortunately, there were too many factors that could have led to the development of the situation. "All right, let's all rest. They won't make any moves tonight." "Yes, General." That night, Lin Muyu slept very soundly. Lying in the tent, Lin Muyu allowed the forging dragon bone remnants Doqi to circulate around his body. His spirit pulse art also extended on its own, as if it had a spirit of its own, permeating into everything in the world. At this moment, heaven, earth, and man formed a kind of harmony, giving him a feeling of comfort throughout his entire body in his sleep. "Sir, bad news." Wei Chao's voice suddenly came from outside. Lin Muyu got up, grabbed his sword, and walked out of the tent. "What's wrong?" Wei Chao's expression was solemn as he said, "This morning, a group of Imperial troops from the Cloud Commandery appeared around the Fire Axe Mountain and surrounded us from the outside. I don't know why." "Have you negotiated with them?" "Not yet." "Follow me." "Yes." Getting on his horse, he led a group of royal guards to the periphery. When Lin Muyu arrived, he could already see a group of people wearing imperial armor guarding the periphery, facing off against the Longdan army camp and Tianchong army inside. "What's going on?" Lin Muyu walked forward and raised his eyebrows. "Who is your person in charge?" The shield slowly moved away, and a man dressed in an official's attire rode out. He cupped his fists. "I am the governor of the Cloud Commandery by Luo. Greetings, Madam Lin Muyu." "By Luo, why are you surrounding this place with the soldiers of the Cloud Commandery?" Lin Muyu suppressed her anger and asked. Bai Luo smiled. "Madam, this Fire Axe Mountain is originally under the jurisdiction of the Cloud Commandery. Today, A group of mercenaries from the Dragon Rocky Mountain suddenly appeared. As the local governor, I naturally have to bring my troops here to investigate. Lin Muyu took out the token. The token of the Zhenan general is here. Now that you have seen it, withdraw your troops. No, madam. No. What do you mean? Bai Luo's face was still full of smiles. He bowed and said, the Cloud Commandery is under the jurisdiction of the Five Valleys City. If there is a battle in my territory, I am afraid that the civilians will be implicated. So before the troops from the Five Valleys City arrive, I must not withdraw my troops. Otherwise, if the governor blames me, I, a small governor of the Cloud Commandery, cannot bear the consequences. Lin Muyu was so angry that she gritted her teeth. Wei Chou said in a low voice, this old fox. Usually, when mercenaries fight to the death, he does not do anything. Now he dares to surround us. How dare he? Lin Muyu rode her horse forward slowly. Looking at Bai Luo's old face, she smiled. Governor, the way you surround us makes me suspect that you are in cahoots with the House of Chivalry. If that is the case, once I report this to His Majesty, I am afraid you will not be able to be the governor anymore. Bai Luo shuddered, sir. I'm just following the rules. Please don't make things difficult for me. If it's really as you said, please take out the Imperial Emperor's edict. I won't dare to disobey and retreat immediately. Lin Muyu was stunned. She could not help but curse in her heart. This old fox must have known that the imperial edict was in Du Hai's hands. That was why he was making things difficult for her. If you want to surround us, then surround us. Lin Muyu abruptly pulled out his long sword and swept it across the ground. His douqi raged and dust flew into the air. Immediately, a deep pit appeared in front of him. He looked coldly at the group of Yinzhong commandery soldiers in front of him and coldly ordered, anyone who dares to cross this line, kill them on the spot. Don't hold back. He looked deeply at Bai Luo and sneered. I know what you are thinking. Just you wait, I will let you get what you want. Bai Luo was stunned. Unease appeared on his face. Chapter 214. My lord, are we just going to let these soldiers from Cloud Middle Commandery surround us? Wei Chou followed Lin Muyu into the central tent, his face full of anger. We've surrounded Fire Axe Mountain without attacking, but now we've been surrounded as well. The food and water from Cathaya City can't be sent in at all. And we've fallen into a quagmire just like the House of Chivalry on Fire Axe Mountain. We must make a decision, my lord. Lin Muyu abruptly turned around, her eyes full of killing intent. Wei Chou, think about it. Why would Bai Lao and the others protect the House of Chivalry like this? Wei Chou was startled, then asked carefully. My lord, are you suspecting that Governor Hu Tianning of Tsangnan Province is in cahoots with the House of Chivalry? Not necessarily, but there's definitely a relationship of interest. Lin Muyu raised her head and sighed. If there wasn't a huge relationship of interest, Hu Tianning wouldn't need to mobilize such a large force, even at the expense of shedding all pretense of cordiality with the Imperial Army. This can only mean that he wants to protect Fire Axe Mountain, and that the House of Chivalry is hiding some secrets that he wants us to know. Wei Chou suddenly understood. My lord, if that's the case, then we must take action. Lin Muyu nodded, asking, how much rations do we have left? 2 days at most. We're running out of water. Dig a dozen wells here. We're low, and there are green mountains all around us except for Fire Axe Mountain. It won't be hard to dig out water. Yes. And what else, my lord? Wei Chou turned to look at him. Find me a set of clothes for the House of Chivalry. I'm going to explore Fire Axe Mountain tonight, and see what secrets this mountain is hiding that made Hu Tianning go to such lengths. My lord, you're risking your life alone, I'm afraid. No need to persuade me, I've made up my mind. Yes, my lord. Late at night, the cold wind howled on Fire Axe Mountain. Rustle, rustle. With a series of rustling sounds, gourd vines began to seep out from the rock stratum, and Lin Muyu grabbed onto a gourd vine tightly, using the characteristics of her martial spirit to climb up the northern cliff of the Fire Axe Mountain. This cliff was not just any ordinary steep cliff. It was a natural barrier that was completely vertical, so the Fire Axe Mountain's rangers would not necessarily guard this place. After all, normal people would not be able to climb up from here. The night was freezing. Lin Muyu's eyebrows were covered with frost, but his eyes were smiling. He was dressed like a rogue hero, and the badge he wore was also green. He was hanging a few hundred meters in the air, climbing up step by step with the help of the gourd vine. Fortunately, the gourd vine was born from his heart, and it was completely compatible with his body. Therefore, he did not have to worry about the thorns on the gourd vine hurting him. Even when Lin Muyu's palm grabbed the gourd vine, the surrounding thorns quickly dissipated into nothingness. It was a very mystical sight. Shwa! With a light leap, Lin Muyu landed on top of a fiery red rock. The dragon spirit sword was wrapped in black cloth and carried on his back. Lin Muyu was very familiar with the House of Chivalry, so he had nothing to fear. He strode over. Not far away, a dozen or so rangers were guarding the outer perimeter of North Mountain. Who is it? One of the rangers hurriedly raised his longbow. Lin Muyu hurriedly raised his hand and said with a smile, "Don't draw your bow, brother. I have a stomachache, but I'm too embarrassed to solve it up there. So I settled it at the edge of the cliff. We're family. Under the moonlight, the ranger saw his attire and couldn't help but laugh. Damn, you scared me. Kid, you look unfamiliar. Are you new? Yes, I've been here for less than a month. No wonder you look unfamiliar. Which team are you from? This question made Lin Muyu stunned. Fortunately, he was more alert and said with a smile, I was brought up the mountain by Lord Iron's Supreme Luoshan. Now I'm following him as his personal guard. There were at least 100 Iron Supreme Luoshan on this mountain. Moreover, there were frequent changes in personnel. These rangers might not know each other, so this lie was very appropriate. Oh, so you're the brother that Lord Iron Supreme brought up the mountain. Come, do you want to drink some wine to warm your body? Thank you, brothers, but I have to go back immediately. Lord Iron Supreme was injured when he went down the mountain to attack today. I have to take care of him. Okay, brother, you've worked hard. After successfully passing through the mountain, Lin Muyu walked along the mountain forest. However, he saw that the rangers along the way were all listless like a withered eggplant. It seemed that the two big blows of the water supply and the failure of the attack had almost caused their morale to drop. It was a pity that Hu Tianning had made a new move. Otherwise, the Longdan army camp would definitely be able to conquer this Fire Axe Mountain within 3 days with minimal losses. At this moment, a group of wandering warriors holding torches suddenly appeared in front of them. They were escorting about 20 people who looked like peasants through the corridor, and went straight to the other side of the cliff. One of them raised his whip and scolded in an arrogant manner, "Move faster, Motherf asterisk cur. If you miss today's work, I'll skin you alive." These civilian workers were all carrying shovels on their shoulders. They looked sallow and emaciated. Lin Muyu couldn't help but frown. Without thinking too much, he quietly followed them and became one of the rangers. Together, they escorted the civilian workers. It was the middle of the night, and they still had to continue working. There must be some kind of secret that they couldn't see. Sure enough, after circling around a small mountain peak, the area in front of them was brightly lit. About 100+ rogue warriors were standing guard in front of a cave, and this cave extended all the way into the depths of Fire Axe Mountain. Faint ding-ding-dang-dang sounds could be heard coming from inside, and Lin Muyu immediately concluded that this was a gold mine. The Fire Axe Mountain was actually a huge gold mine. This was too sensational. Go down. After pushing the civilian workers into the mine, Lin Muyu also followed a group of rangers down. The entire mine was filled with torches and rangers acting as guards. The entire Fire Axe Mountain seemed to have been emptied. The walls of the mine were densely packed with miners. They were using hammers, shovels, and other tools to strike the ores in the mountain. Under the light of the torches, some of the ores had a faint golden hue. Although it wasn't pure, it was definitely a gold mine. Lin Muyu couldn't help but take a deep breath. At this time, a bearded ranger looked at him and asked with a smile, "Little brother, you look unfamiliar. Are you new here?" "That's right. How should I address this big brother?" "Just call me Daniel." "Ha, big brother Daniel, you're also in charge of guarding the mine today." "That's right." Daniel nodded. His eyes were filled with greed as he looked at the carts of gold and said, If all of this gold is turned into Jin coins, hee. Each of us can marry 7 or 8 wives. Lin Muyu's heart sank. She smiled and said, Big brother Daniel, do you know that these gold mines are used to make coins? Of course. Daniel waved his arm and smiled. Otherwise, why do you think that old fox Hu Tianning sent reinforcements to us when the Fire Axe Mountain was surrounded? Lin Muyu was relieved and said, I'm new here, so I don't really understand these rules. Could it be that Hu Tianning wants these gold mines to make coins for himself? That's right. What else do you think? Daniel excitedly said. Since ancient times, birds die for wealth and birds die for food. But as far as I know, there is a law in the empire that prohibits officials from making coins for themselves. Lin Muyu said hypocritically. Daniel rubbed his nose and said, Do you think that old fox Hu Tianning is a vegetarian? This Fire Axe Mountain has been mined for almost a year. Just the amount of Jin coins that have been made is more than 10 million. Hu Tianning is overflowing with wealth right now. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to buy maids, warhorses, and weapons in such a large amount. He even dares to buy warhorses and weapons? Lin Muyu smiled in astonishment. This Hu Tianning is really bold. Daniel smiled and said, Of course. The armies in Songnan province add up to about 120,000 people. Among them, the most elite is the Flying Mount camp led by General Long Qianlin, under Hu Tianning. It is said that the war horses of this Flying Mount camp are all fine horses from the western regions. Their weapons are also made by famous craftsmen. All of them are made of black iron. Looking at the entire empire, which army can be mentioned in the same breath as them? Lin Muyu secretly smiled. Perhaps even her Longdan army camp could contend against them? However, this Hu Tianning was indeed bold. He actually dared to collude with the House of Chivalry to mine gold on Fire Axe Mountain. How bold! Lin Muyu deeply sighed and said, I wonder how many Jin coins we can get. Nowadays, marrying a wife in the countryside costs a lot of money. Daniel smiled. Don't worry. Oh right, what is your name? Linji. Daniel immediately patted Lin Muyu's shoulder and smiled. Little brother Linji, the great travel envoy has already promised us that after we finish mining the gold on Fire Axe Mountain, we will move to another nest. Each brother will receive at least 1,000 Jin coins. Nowadays, the girls in the countryside are quite cheap. You can marry one for only 100 Jin coins. You are so young and strong. Marrying a wife from 5 households is not a problem, ha ha ha. Lin Muyu smiled shyly. Brother Daniel must be joking. I am still inexperienced. Daniel. At this time, an excited voice suddenly came from the depths of the mine. We found it. We found it. What did you find? Lin Muyu was startled. The voice in the depths of the mine immediately responded with a loud laugh. Sir Jin Zun, we have found a white diamond. Quickly go and tell the great travel envoy that we have finally found a white diamond. Lin Muyu was startled. He immediately went down the rope with a group of wandering warriors. With the help of the light, he saw a group of miners gathered there. At the bottom of the mine, after the hard rocks were cut open, long crystals that looked like ice crystals appeared in front of him. This was the legendary white diamond? What was the difference between a white diamond and a diamond? The people of this world did not worship diamonds, but they seemed to worship white diamonds. What was the use of these glowing white crystals? Chapter 215. What's the use of white diamonds? Lin Muyu asked in surprise. Daniel squinted his eyes and said, You don't know? White diamonds are very rare, but they're the favorite ornaments of noble ladies. It's said that these white diamonds can emit light, so many noble ladies like to use them to decorate their rooms. Usually, a lady with a white diamond is enough to make her best friend envious. Looking at the bundles of white diamonds in the rock stratum, Lin Muyu furrowed her brows. This was another huge fortune, but it seemed like it was not fated to be with her. It was about to become Hu Tianning's. Taking a deep breath, Lin Muyu tried to touch these white diamonds with her spiritual sense, but she didn't expect that there was spiritual energy in the white diamonds that reflected her spiritual sense. Heavens, these white diamonds actually contain such rich spiritual energy. She carefully analyzed the structure of the white diamonds with her spiritual sense, and found that although they were called diamonds, they were actually more like metals. However, they were a type of metal with unknown characteristics. At least, they weren't in the periodic table of elements. The crystal form of white diamonds was made up of tiny particles, and the structure of each particle was similar to the molecular structure of a diamond. One could imagine how hard it was. It's said that white diamonds have another use. At this time, another venerable who was about 60 years old said while stroking his beard, "Oh, what use?" Lin Muyu and Dinyo asked together. The old venerable smiled and said, "I heard from our ancestors that this kind of white diamond is extremely sharp, and it has a natural ability to destroy battle chi. So, in ancient times, there were divine blacksmiths who used white diamonds to make weapons. These weapons can easily break through the defense of battle chi armor. In other words, a heavenly king's defense can't even withstand a single blow from a white diamond weapon." Dinyo immediately raised his eyebrows and said, "T. There are many white diamonds in the empire now, but why isn't there a weapon made from white diamonds?" "Because there hasn't been a divine blacksmith of that level in the future." The venerable smiled disdainfully. "You kids won't understand even if I tell you, huh? White diamonds can break battle armor." These words were like a bolt from the blue to Lin Muyu. How many powerful beings at the Heavenly King stage and above had relied on the toughness of their suits of battle armor to dominate an entire army. However, if he could really smelt the white diamond and use it as a weapon, that would be the bane of all Heavenly King stage powerhouses. Furthermore, Lin Muyu could already imagine that scene in her heart. With the white diamond as the arrowhead, wouldn't it be able to instantly kill any Heavenly King stage powerhouse? If that was really the case, perhaps Zhen Yifan, Xiang Yu, and the others wouldn't be as scary as they had imagined. After all, not everyone could withstand the simultaneous release of 10,000 arrows. In an instant, Lin Muyu made up her mind. She couldn't leave any of these white diamonds to Hu Tianning. Otherwise, it would be a disaster. Ouch, he suddenly bent his body. Dinyo hurriedly asked, "Little brother Linji, what's wrong?" I suddenly have a stomachache. I'll go up first." Okay, be careful." "Thank you, brother Dinyo." This Dinyo was very straightforward and honest. He was very likable. After flying out of the mine, Lin Muyu once again arrived at the North Mountain. Using the excuse of having a stomachache, she went down the mountain and headed straight for the main tent of the Longdan army camp. It was already past midnight. "Gather all the generals above the rank of Chiliarch," he said in a low voice. Wei Chou immediately cupped his fists. "Yes, sir." A few minutes later, more than 10 generals with sleepy eyes came to the main tent. All of their faces were full of surprise. "General, for you to summon us in the middle of the night, could it be that the troops from the Cloud Commandery are attacking?" "Not really." Lin Muyu shook her head. "Prepare to gather the troops. We will attack the mountain during the night. We must occupy the entire Fire Axe Mountain before dawn. The Tianchong army will be responsible for bringing up the rear. I will personally lead the Longdan army camp to attack the mountain. We will strive to take it down in one strike." "Yes, sir." Luo Yu and Fengxi cupped their fists together. "The Longdan army camp awaits your orders at any time." Torches were quickly raised, and every mercenary in the Longdan army camp had a few water bags hanging on their waists. It might not be easy to go down the mountain after going up the mountain. They had to make early preparations to avoid the same fate as the House of Chivalry on the Fire Axe Mountain. In the middle of the night, Lin Muyu led more than 1,000 heavy cavalry of the Longdan army camp to the mountain gate. From afar, Wei Chou killed the silver elder guarding the gate with a single arrow. "Be careful. The Empire's lackeys are attacking at night." A warning came from the stone fortress. There was no time to waste. Lin Muyu quickly activated his martial spirit. The golden gourd wrapped him and his warhorse within it. He charged towards the mountain gate and raised his right fist. The space seemed to distort because of it. He mustered all his strength and expended nearly 40% of his do chi to unleash a Four Luminaries demon cry. The Four Luminaries demon cry was an area of effect attack. The power of the demon god bombarded the gate like a cannonball. Instantly, the iron gate was torn into pieces. Even the entire stone city wall was turned into dust. The rangers on the city wall howled in pain. Looking at the countless soldiers of the Longdan army camp climbing up the mountain, none of them dared to resist. They were scared out of their wits and shouted, "Oh my God, are they still human? Sir, spare us. We are willing to join the Empire's army." They quickly broke through the mountain gate. Just as Lin Muyu had expected, there were more than 2,000 rangers on the mountain. However, at least half of them were supervising the work in the mines. Therefore, there were very few people that could be sent out to defend the mountain. The people from the House of Chivalry probably thought that Lin Muyu would not dare to attack the mountain with the arrival of the troops from Yunzhong Commandery. However, they were wrong. It was because the temptation of the White Diamond was too great for Lin Muyu to resist. The Longdan army camp swept through and quickly killed their way up the mountain. With just over 1,000 heavy cavalry, they were unimpeded. In fact, it was mainly due to the 60 royal guards at the front of the formation. The strength of the royal guards was known to the world. With these 60 powerhouses attacking the mountain, it was a miracle that the House of Chivalry could withstand them. "Be careful, their great Yuchess envoy is here." Xiahou Sang raised his spear and rushed over from afar. He laughed and said, "Leave this great Yuchess envoy to me." The great Yuchess envoy was already a white-haired old man. The result was beyond Xiahou Sang's expectations. With a sweep of his battle energy, Xiahou Sang and his horse were pushed back. He was not a match for the great Yuchess envoy at all. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes. This great Yuchess envoy was wearing battle armor. He was a heavenly king powerhouse, but his aura might not be stronger than hers. More importantly, the great Yuchess envoy's weapon was only a spirit-grade long saber. "With me, Guan Longxing here, who dares to be presumptuous?" The great Yuchess envoy held his saber in front of him, his face full of arrogance. The group of rangers behind him were encouraged, and all of them had smiles on their faces. Lord Great Yuchess envoy is indeed invincible. Brothers, we will definitely win. Pa! Lin Muyu suddenly leaped from her horse, her battle energy rising rapidly. Holding the dragon spirit sword with both hands, she quickly descended from the sky. The blade was surrounded by the two luminaries' demonic dance's Xian energy. She shouted, "I don't care if you are a great Yuchess envoy or not. Eat my sword." Lin Muyu. The great Yuchess envoy's eyes turned cold. He hurriedly raised his long saber to block Lin Muyu's mighty sword. Clang! Sparks flew, and a small piece of steel broke off from the handle of the long saber. It was obvious that the hardness of the saber was far inferior to the dragon spirit sword, but this great Yuchess man was not to be trifled with. The long saber suddenly slashed down. Wong! The golden wall of the gourd opened, and Lin Muyu forcefully blocked the opponent's saber. His blood energy was in turmoil. Damn, those who could step into the Heavenly King stage were not easy to deal with. They had to rely on their own strengths. Using the rebound force, he retreated, but his battle boots quickly stepped on the ground, and he launched another attack. This time, he focused the Xian energy of the three luminaries' calamity on the longsword, and activated the true dragon essence fire to surround the blade to increase its destructive power. Guan Longxing hurriedly turned around and left, his long saber dragging along the ground, leaving a trail of sparks. Stalling? Lin Muyu was stunned. Was this Guan Longxing the incarnation of Marshal Saint Guan? However, while he was in the air, he threw his longsword out without thinking. The stalling tactic was to pretend to retreat and let the opponent chase him, then turn around and kill him with a slash. However, this tactic was useless against the sword control technique. Wang. The dragon spirit sword cut through the air, flames surrounding the sword hilt all the way to Lin Muyu's palm. Guan Longxing heard a sharp whistle behind him, and hurriedly turned around and raised his saber to block again. Clang! This time, the sound was even more crisp, and the long saber was directly cut in half. Guan Longxing was stunned, but his face was full of anger. He held the saber hilt in one hand and the broken saber head in the other, and rushed toward Lin Muyu. Before Lin Muyu could land on the ground, he swept his saber horizontally. The long saber slammed into the wall of the gourd, and she rolled away in a sorry state. Guan Longxing didn't let her go, and he beat her up with both hands. Lin Muyu had never suffered like this before, and it was in front of so many mercenaries in the Longdan army camp. Her battle boots suddenly pierced into the ground, and after stabilizing her body, the dragon spirit sword appeared in her hand again, and she slashed out like lightning. Pung! The sword struck Guan Longxing's shoulder like lightning, but he still had his battle armor on. He grabbed the blade of the dragon spirit sword, and his face was full of arrogance. He stabbed the long saber horizontally into Lin Muyu's chest. Lin Muyu's reaction was even faster. She turned around and used her battle armor to deflect the fatal strike. Her left hand quickly spun, and flames surged as she controlled the dragon spirit sword to spin rapidly. Ah! Guan Longxing's sword hand was quickly crushed into pieces. Even a saber couldn't block the dragon spirit sword, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Lin Muyu was extremely fast. She directly grabbed the chainmail on Guan Longxing's neck with one hand, and her right hand grabbed the hilt of the sword and pressed it against his chest. Pooh! Fresh blood spurted out. Guan Longxing, a master of his generation, a legendary figure of the Guild of Chivalry's headquarters in Songnan Province, ended his tragic life just like that. Chapter 216. With Guan Longxing's death, the few remaining golden venerables and silver venerables from the House of Chivalry lost their courage to continue fighting. One by one they knelt on the ground and wailed, "The great wanderer, you died a terrible death. What are you crying for?" Xiahou Sang crawled up from the mud and said with his spear in hand, "Put down your weapons, and I will spare your lives. Otherwise I will kill all of you." "We are willing to surrender." The group of people put down their weapons. It was good that there was no massacre. "My lord, what should we do now?" Qi Ying cupped his fists and said, "I feel that since Fire Axe Mountain has been conquered and these rangers are willing to surrender, our mission is complete. Why don't we go down the mountain immediately?" Lin Muyu nodded. "General Qi Ying will lead 5,000 heavy cavalry from the Tianchong army down the mountain to set up camp. Wait for me." "Yes." Qi Ying mounted his horse and left. Wei Chou asked, "My lord, what else do we need to do?" "Bring the men and follow me." "Yes." In the Fire Axe Mountain mine, the clanking sounds were still lingering. When more than 1,000 Longdan army camp mercenaries appeared in the mine, the rangers did not have the courage to fight at all. They all put down their weapons and expressed their willingness to surrender. Most of these people only joined the House of Chivalry to seek a better future. Apart from some of them who had bad records, the rest could be incorporated into the Longdan army camp mercenaries. Lin Muyu was wearing the Holy Temple's battle robe. When she stepped into the mine with Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the other royal guards, Daniel recognized her from afar. His eyes widened. "Aren't you little brother Lin Ji?" Wei Chou said in a low voice, "Don't be rude. This is Lin Muyu from the Eagle's Nest camp of the royal guards. She is also the new general of the south." "This?" Daniel's face was filled with fear as he quickly knelt down and said, "This lowly one greets sir. This lowly one didn't know sir was. I know I was wrong, sir. Please don't kill me." Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. She went forward to hold Daniel's arms and said with a smile, "Brother Daniel, my real name is indeed Lin Ji. You don't have to be afraid. The Imperial Army isn't like the dogs of the Empire that you guys claim to be. Don't worry, if you're willing to surrender then join us. If not, then take your Jin-in coins and go home. With me here, no one will dare to touch a single hair on your head." Daniel stood there in shock while Wei Chou snickered. "This big blockhead is really stupid." Xiahou Sang looked around and said, "Heavens, so there's a gold mine here. These damn rangers are secretly mining here instead of reporting to the Ministry of Works. Humans die in pursuit of wealth just as birds die in pursuit of food. It's normal," Lin Muyu said. Luo Yu, on the other hand, was quite courageous. She squinted her eyes and said with a smile, "I'm afraid the truth is more than that. From Hu Tianing's behavior, this gold mine is most likely his. At least, he won't be able to clean up this mess no matter what." However, Lin Muyu suddenly turned around and said with a serious expression, "Listen up, all of you. This gold mine was mined by Guan Longsheng of the House of Chivalry in Songnan Province. It has nothing to do with Sir Hu Tianning of Five Valley City. If anyone dares to slander Governor Hu Tianning, I, Lin Muyu, promise to cut off his head with my sword. Luo Yu, Wei Chou and the others were shocked. Sir, this, however, Fengxi smiled and cupped his fists. Sir is wise. At this time, everyone had already reached the bottom of the mine. However, in less than 2 hours, clusters of white diamond crystals had already appeared in their field of vision. These are white diamonds. Wei Chou, who was experienced and knowledgeable, asked. Lin Muyu nodded and said, Luo Yu, Fengxi, let our brothers in the Longdan army camp come down and quickly mine these white diamonds. Then load them up and send them back to Dragon Rocky Mountain. Luo Yu smiled. Yes, sir. Lin Muyu walked forward and used the dragon spirit sword to dig with all her might. She found that there were actually only so many white diamonds in front of her. If she dug any further, there would be gold mines. Wei Chou saw through Lin Muyu's thoughts and said with a smile, Sir, white diamonds only grow in rich spiritual energy layers, so there are only so many here. Moreover, it's already very fortunate that we can dig so many. The reserves of white diamonds here are equivalent to about half of the Empire's total reserves, right? Lin Muyu nodded. Yes, this is enough. Hurry up and mine. Xia Hosang was puzzled. Sir, then what about the gold mines? Privately mining gold mines is a capital offense. Lin Muyu smiled at him and said, Xia Hosang, do you want to violate the Empire's laws? This. Xia Hosang smiled. Sir is too smart. Lin Muyu didn't go anywhere. She just sat in the mine and watched Luo Yu, Wei Chou, and the others mine the white diamonds. She put the white diamonds that were submitted into her Qianquan bag one by one. However, the Qianquan bag was quickly filled to the brim. There were at most 700 to 800 white diamonds. The remaining hundreds of white diamonds were given to the soldiers in the Longdan army camp to carry. At this moment, a tiger-level commander from the Longdan army camp dashed into the mine and cupped his fists. Commander, a group of people who claim to be from the Flying Mount camp have arrived at the foot of the mountain. They said that if we don't go out, they will immediately attack the mountain. General Qi Ying of the Tianchong army camp seems to be unable to restrain his anger and wants to fight. Sir, quickly go and take a look. Oh? Lin Muyu's gaze turned cold. Is Long Qianlin finally here? Long Qianlin is known as the #1 general in the Songnan province. We are outnumbered and can't fight him. Sir, Luo Yu advised. I know. Lin Muyu frowned and said, Don't stop mining here. The few of you follow me out. Yes. After exiting the mine, she mounted her horse and led the 3,000+ cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp down the mountain. At this time, it was already daybreak. The first rays of the morning sun shone on the Fire Axe Mountain, reflecting a patch of red. However, the foot of the mountain also seemed to be covered in a patch of red. No, it should be called blood red. A battle had already broken out at the mountain gate. Corpses were lying there, and blood had dyed the ground red. Qi Ying's armor was stained with blood. He held his spear and urged his horse forward in a somewhat sorry state. He said, Sir, I fell into Long Qianlin's trap. I was forced to retreat by their spear formation on the mountainside. You? Lin Muyu suppressed her anger and calmly said, Victory and defeat are common. Follow me to take a look. Yes, sir. There were close to 500 corpses lying on the hillside. At least 400 of them belonged to the Tianchong army. The number of corpses from the Flying Mount camp was pitifully small. The fortress had just been repaired and both sides were in a standoff. Lin Muyu saw this and raised her eyebrows. She said, Wei Chou, bring our master archers to the fortress. When the Flying Mount camp comes over later, aim at their eyes and necks and shoot. Yes, sir, watch carefully. Lin Muyu continued. Luo Yu, lead the stronger brothers from the Longdan army camp to the fortress and carry the rounder stones. If the Flying Mount camp attacks the mountain forcefully, throw these stones down. Yes, sir. Fengxi, lead 200 men to dismount and form a shield formation to block their arrows. Yes. After the assignment was completed, Lin Muyu carried the dragon spirit sword and ascended the small mountain gate. Looking from afar, the Fire Axe Mountain was really surrounded. There were at least 30,000 men and horses at the foot of the mountain, including the elite flying mount camp. Moreover, Long Qianlin, the #1 general of Songnan province, was personally overseeing this conflict. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like they could win. Looking into the distance, Lin Muyu channeled her qi into her voice and said in a clear voice, "Sir Long Qianlin, I didn't expect that we would meet in this way after we parted at Wugu City." From the cavalry formation, a man dressed in black armor walked out with a spear in his hand and said with a smile, "Sir Lin Muyu, I, Long Qianlin, also didn't expect that we would meet like this. However, sir, you led your troops into the territory of Songnan province without permission, and ordered your subordinates to kill over 100 soldiers from Yunzhong Commandery. Your actions are equivalent to treason, so I had no choice but to surround this fire axe mountain." Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and said, "General Long Qianlin didn't even frown when he lied. You really have the demeanor of a famous general. Why did I come up the mountain, and why did you come here? Don't tell me that General Long Qianlin doesn't know?" Long Qianlin sneered, "Sir Lin Muyu, you are one of the 4 heroes of Lan and Yin appointed by His Majesty. Everyone knows that you are now the honorable general of the South. Everyone thinks that you will be a famous general in the future. I, Long Qianlin, have the honor to experience the abilities of a famous general like you today. Do you dare to fight?" "Come," Lin Muyu said lightly. Clang! Long Qianlin unsheathed his sword and shouted, "Attack the mountain!" The Flying Mount Battalion mobilized 1,000 men to attack the mountain. Their formation was neat and orderly. After entering the firing range, they immediately raised their shields to protect themselves and their companions. They moved forward as a whole without the slightest bit of disorder, as if they were an iron shield. Lin Muyu couldn't help but secretly exclaim in admiration. This Long Qianlin was indeed very capable. As a famous general in the era of cold weapons, everyone had their own skill. Long Qianlin's reputation was definitely earned through fighting, and not through bragging. Release the arrows. Under Wei Chao's command, the stone fortress released tens of thousands of arrows in unison. Moreover, there was no lack of sharpshooters among the Imperial Guards and the Longdan army camp. While the arrows landed on the shields, there was no lack of arrows that hit the eyes and necks of the soldiers of the Flying Mount Battalion. Immediately, blood-curdling screams rang out. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people were shot and killed. The entire shield formation seemed to have been affected. Long Qianlin spurred his horse to the rear of the cavalry formation. He suddenly raised his long sword and shouted, "Throw the spear!" Clang, 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 one by one, the shields fell. The next moment, the nearly 1,000 soldiers of the Flying Mount Battalion raised the spears on their horses and threw them. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. "Squat down!" Lin Muyu hurriedly shouted. Everyone on the fortress squatted down one after another. However, there were still people who couldn't dodge in time, and were directly shot by the spears. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 people were killed and more than 10 people were injured. Chapter 217. Clang, clang. The opponent raised his shield again to protect his whole body. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes. Seeing that the opponent was already less than 10 meters away from her, she immediately raised her arm and shouted, "Hurl the stones!" Luo Yu led a group of strong men to hurl the stones. Instantly, the sky seemed to be covered by the stones. The moment the huge stones smashed the shields of the Flying Mount camp soldiers, they were badly mutilated. Not only that, Lin Muyu flew down the city wall. Not only that, Lin Muyu dashed down the city wall with the golden gourd walls protecting her body. Her longsword left her hand and circled around rapidly. Suddenly, a dragon flame spiral pierced through the crowd of the Flying Mount Battalion. The dragon spirit sword was so sharp that it pierced through the shields and armors, instantly drawing a stream of blood. Lin Muyu brandished her fists and sent 2 cavalrymen flying along with their shields with 2 punches. She then grabbed the dragon spirit sword that was spinning towards her and swept it horizontally, breaking an entire row of shields with a cracking sound. She even mercilessly chopped off the cavalrymen's arms. "Assassinate!" Long Qianlin shouted. One by one, the cavalrymen moved their shields away, and pierced the walls of Lin Muyu's gourd with their spears. Instantly, the light was dense and ripples were formed. Each ripple meant that a portion of Lin Muyu's battle energy was consumed. This won't do. We can't fight a protracted battle like this. Lin Muyu quickly retreated, and the gourd vines quickly wrapped around the stone wall. She quickly climbed up and shouted in a low voice, "Hurl the spears!" Hundreds of mercenaries from the Longdan army camp on the fortress also raised their spears and hurled them down. The stones had already disrupted the opponent's formation, and this round of throwing spears killed nearly 100 of them. In the blink of an eye, less than 700 of the 1,000 soldiers from the flying mount camp were left, and many of them were injured by the flying arrows. Long Qianlin was distressed. How could he continue fighting? He shouted in a low voice, "Everyone come back. Prepare the fire oil trucks." Fire oil trucks? Lin Muyu felt a chill in her heart. She sighed inwardly. This Long Qianlin was truly vicious. It was winter, and the vegetation had withered. If he used fire to attack, then wouldn't this fire axe mountain really turn into a volcano? No, I can't let the 10,000 soldiers of the Tianchong army and the Longdan army camp die with me. Pressing her hand on the ice-cold stone wall, Lin Muyu shouted from a distance, "Long Qianlin, I've received the imperial order to annihilate the chivalrous inn. Do you really want to exterminate us, the imperial army? A day ago I had already sent a letter to Lanyan City to ask for help, and Commander Feng Jixing will soon lead 50,000 troops to reinforce. Do you want to be enemies with Feng Jixing or the Empire?" Long Qianlin's face was gloomy as he said, "Lin Muyu, it is a fact that you have killed the soldiers of Yunzhong Commandery. Just this point is enough to make you unable to be the general of the south. When General Feng Jixing arrives, this general will naturally explain the whole story to him." He still had some fear. After all, some things couldn't be said out loud. He also didn't want Lin Muyu and the others to divulge certain information. Lin Muyu was as clear as a blazing fire. She smiled and said, "General Long, when I went up the mountain, I discovered that the dog thief Guan Longxing was secretly mining the gold mine in the mountain. I've already killed him. I believe that Governor Hu Tianning of the Five Valleys City still doesn't know about this matter. I advise you to immediately withdraw your troops. In this case, I will give the credit of discovering this gold mine to Governor Hu Tianning. What do you think?" Long Qianlin was instantly stunned. What he feared the most was that Lin Muyu's conviction that Hu Tianning had colluded with the chivalrous into secretly mint coins would be exposed. However, Lin Muyu's words were completely exonerating Hu Tianning. What an extremely intelligent Lin Muyu. Long Qianlin secretly praised in his heart. He raised his head and asked, "Madam Lin Muyu, did you really not intentionally shoot the soldiers of Yunzhong Commandery? If this is really the case, then this battle was a misunderstanding." Lin Muyu spread out her hands and looked like an old friend reminiscing about the old days. She smiled and said, "General Long, do you still not trust me? I, Lin Muyu, am the Emperor's adopted son, and the commander of the Imperial Guard's Eagle Guard. Moreover, this group of dog thieves from the chivalrous inn had secretly mined the gold mine. Many soldiers and I witnessed it with our own eyes. As long as I return to the imperial capital, this credit will definitely belong to Governor Hu Tianning. Consider it as me returning a favor to you and thanking you for not killing them." Long Qianlin nodded. "All right, I will go back and discuss this with the governor. Madam Lin Muyu, please wait here for a moment." All right. In the main tent of the Flying Mount camp, Hu Tianning was still enjoying a cup of fragrant tea. Suddenly, Long Qianlin opened the tent door and entered. He said, "Madam, I'm back." "Oh, it's Qianlin. What's the result?" Long Qianlin looked a little ashamed. He said, "Lin Muyu used his troops wisely. This general was unable to conquer Fire Axe Mountain in a short period of time. However, Lin Muyu said that he found out that Guan Longxing had secretly mined the gold mine. From his words, he didn't seem to have the slightest suspicion that Madam was involved in this matter. Is that so?" Hu Tianning squinted his eyes and said, "This Lin Muyu is simply extremely intelligent. It is not a good thing to have such a person stay by His Majesty's side. Qianlin, what do you think we should do now?" Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, Darren, Lin Muyu said that he had already sent a letter to Lanyan City to ask for reinforcements. Feng Jixing will be leading 50,000 troops, and will arrive in a few days. Even though I do not know if it is true or false, but Qianlin thinks that killing Lin Muyu on Fire Axe Mountain would remove a big worry in his heart, but at the same time offend Feng Jixing and the imperial capital. It is inevitable that the matter of the coinage will be leaked. In my opinion, it is better to let go of Lin Muyu this time. There will be plenty of opportunities to kill him. Qianlin guarantees to Darren that the next time, I will not let Lin Muyu have any hope of survival. Hu Tianning laughed heartily. Qianlin, are you appreciating Lin Muyu? Long Qianlin was startled. Darren, I did not. It doesn't matter. Let's go. Follow me to welcome the Emperor's godson down the mountain. Yes. At the foot of Fire Axe Mountain, the flag was flying. Hu Tianning was escorted by a group of flying Mount Camp soldiers to the foot of the mountain. The corpses that were left behind from the previous battle had all been removed, as if this conflict had never happened. Creak. The wooden door that had just been built opened. Lin Muyu brought Wei Chou, Luo Yu, Qi Ying and the rest down the mountain. Lin Muyu was still all right as she had a smile on her face, but the three generals behind her had a vigilant look on their faces. Their right hands were placed on the hilt of their swords at their waist, as if they were ready to fight at any time. The fortress behind them was densely packed with soldiers from the Longdan army camp, who were ready to fight at any time. Darren, we will stop here. Long Qianlin reached out to restrain Hu Tianning's warhorse, indicating that he should not go any further. If he went any further, he would enter the shooting range of the Longdan army camp's archers. Long Qianlin had personally experienced the accuracy and arm strength of the dozens of godly archers in the Longdan army camp. Hu Tianning was also afraid of death. He nodded with a smile, turned over and dismounted to wait. Lin Muyu and the others sped up their pace and came very close. Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. It's been a long time, Governor. We meet again after we parted ways in Five Valley City. Hu Tianning cupped his hands and smiled. Yes, but I did not expect that there would be some small misunderstanding between us. The information we received before was not true. Please do not be angry, General Lin. I, Hu Tianning, did not act appropriately in this matter. It was our Tsangnan province that neglected General. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and said, What are you talking about? I should thank you for personally leading tens of thousands of troops from Five Valley City to the foot of Fire Axe Mountain to protect our army. Ha! The muscles on Hu Tianning's face twitched. He seemed to hear the sarcasm in Lin Muyu's words, but he did not show any strange expression. He just smiled and said, General, the House of Chivalry of Fire Axe Mountain is treacherous. Each and every one of them should be executed immediately. I wonder how the general will deal with those prisoners of war? Lin Muyu said, I will escort them back to Lanyan City to await punishment. They will most likely be executed, so there is no need for you to worry. This is what I should do. Yes. Lin Muyu walked forward and lowered her voice. Governor, this Fire Axe Mountain is actually a gold mine. The bastards of the House of Chivalry have already mined a lot of it. It is really hateful. I only received orders to destroy the House of Chivalry, but I did not receive any orders regarding the gold mine. So I have already sent a letter back to Lanyan City to let the Ministry of Works send people over to mine coins. Before that, this Fire Axe Mountain will be handed over to the governor to send people to guard. Hu Tianning nodded. Yes, I understand. Please rest assured, General. Well, then let the Flying Mount Battalion disperse. Let my people go down the mountain. Yes. Long Qianlin waved his flag. Immediately, the Flying Mount Battalion and the garrison troops of Five Valley City dispersed, creating a path for Lin Muyu's troops to escape. Galloping on their horses, more than 9,000 cavalrymen quickly withdrew from the Fire Axe Mountain, followed by nearly 2,000 surrendered soldiers from the House of Chivalry. At the same time, they also took away more than 1,400 precious white diamonds. Of course, Hu Tianning would not be aware of the existence of these white diamonds for the time being. After getting out of the encirclement, Lin Muyu finally heaved a sigh of relief. It was not easy to bring these 10,000 people out alive. Perhaps only he knew how dangerous it was. Sir. Wei Qiu's face was full of doubt, and said, "We once again left the Fire Axe Mountain's gold mine to Hu Tianning. From what I see, this guy will definitely continue to mine coins. Don't tell me. We don't know anything." "Otherwise?" Lin Muyu asked and smiled. "It's not easy to come out alive. Don't provoke Hu Tianning anymore. Wei Qiu, you know the feudal lords of the empire better than I do. Are all the governors of the provinces like Hu Tianning?" Wei Qiu was stunned and said, "At least more than half. The governors of the provinces have a certain amount of power to recruit soldiers, so the governors of the major provinces will basically gather troops for themselves. This is also a major reason why the imperial power of the emperor has been weakened. Moreover, regarding the matter of exterminating the House of Chivalry, after the imperial edict was issued, all the provinces agreed on the surface but disobeyed in secret. This is all expected." "I see." Lin Muyu took a deep breath and her mood became solemn. This Qin Empire seemed to be a centralized imperial system, but in fact, it was almost a situation where warlords were divided. Living in such a chaotic world, she really did not know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Holding the dragon spirit sword, Lin Muyu lowered her eyes and looked at the ground that was constantly retreating under the hooves of the horses. For a moment, her heart was filled with mixed feelings. Chapter 218. After leaving Fire Axe Mountain, they continued to station their troops outside Silver Fir City. This time, however, Lin Muyu ordered Fengxi to lead 500 mercenaries from the Longdan army camp into Silver Fir City. They would be able to coordinate with those outside the city at any time, and with their backs to Silver Fir City, they could enter the city at any time. Although Silver Fir City's walls weren't particularly thick, they at least had enough food and water. At dusk, the afterglow of the setting sun shone upon the camp. The Spirit Medicine Division was already cooking meat soup and frying the army flatbread a little, so that the soldiers could enjoy it more. Inside the central tent, Luoyu, Qiying, Wei Qiu and the others were standing around a sand table. Although this sand table made of silt was simple and crude, it at least had a rough representation of the entire Cangnan province. Wei Qiu was a meticulous man. He inserted a small blue flag into the sand table and said, "Within the Cangnan province, the main altar of the House of Chivalry had more than 5,000 soldiers. We've already eliminated them, but there are still a total of 47 branches left. Going by the distance, the branch in Cloud Province is the closest with around 550 people. The second is the branch on the east of Silver Fir City with around 400 people. There's nothing to fear." Xiahou Sang said, "My lord, if we were to eliminate them one by one, it would take too much time. This general suggests that we split our forces. We'll split into 10 groups of 1,000 men and eliminate them together. What does my lord think?" Lin Muyu nodded and said, "Then let's pick 10 capable Kiliarchs to lead the troops. Remember, we'll try to get them to surrender first. If they don't succeed, then we'll attack. Try to minimize our losses from the House of Gallantry." "Yes, this general understands." Lin Muyu then looked at Wei Qiu and said, "How is the establishment of the Divine Bao Battalion going?" Wei Qiu smiled slightly. Reporting to Master, this general has already selected 100 mercenaries with extraordinary archery skills from the Brave Dragon camp. In the future, these people will be able to train in the consummate skill of shooting a poplar from 100 steps away. And that's good. Lin Muyu let out a sigh of relief and said, "All right, everyone is tired after a busy day. Let's go back and rest early. We'll set out to eliminate the bandits tomorrow morning. In addition, place our scouts further away and pay close attention to the movements of the 5 Valley Cities troops." "Yes." After everyone dispersed, Lin Muyu sat on the edge of the bed and circulated the Forging Dragon Bone Remnant Scroll to recover her Do Qi and physical strength. Soon after, she got off the bed and took out a crystal from her Cosmos bag. It was really a white diamond. This crystal pillar was about 1 meter long and 10 centimeters thick. It was exquisitely carved and sparkled under the light. Glancing at the door, he ordered, "No one can come in without my permission." "Yes, my lord," the guard replied solemnly. Lin Muyu raised her hand and summoned her cauldron. It was time to verify whether the legend was true or not. Was it true that a weapon forged from white diamond could break through battle armor? If it was true, then this trip to Fire Axe Mountain was a huge profit. If it wasn't, then it would only be an empty joy. Swoosh swoosh. Strands of heavenly fire lingered around the crystal and began to refine this hard iron stone. Her spiritual sense slowly seeped into the crystal and dissected the spirit stone layer. Immediately, the fire drilled into the spirit stone layer and quickly melted the iron. Not long after, small white diamond particles like the tip of a needle floated in the molten iron. These were real white diamonds. Lin Muyu frowned and continued to use the heavenly fire to refine the crystal. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't melt these particles. These particles were abnormally hard and solidified. The only thing Lin Muyu could do was to reshape the solidified form of these particles. Suddenly, her heart sank. Perhaps these particles could be reshaped and condensed on the blade. In that case, the sharpness of the blade would be greatly enhanced. Immediately, she took out the dragon spirit sword and placed it into the cauldron. Immediately, the dragon serpent sword spirit let out a series of roars. Lin Muyu spread her fingers and controlled the white diamonds to attach to the sword, quickly turning it into a sharp edge. This way, the sharpness of the dragon spirit sword would not be affected, but it would also greatly increase the strength of the sword. Only a fist-sized white diamond had been extracted from the entire white diamond crystal pillar. Half of it had been smelted into the blade of the dragon spirit sword. The remaining half could be used in other areas. Buzz. Lin Muyu held the dragon spirit sword in his hand again. The blade seemed to be plated with a layer of silver light and was glowing brightly. Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. He could feel the joy of the sword's soul in his palm. The dragon spirit sword had been strengthened after the blade was reforged. He slowly returned the dragon spirit sword to its sheath. He looked around with a satisfied expression and picked up a bunch of arrows from the side. The arrowheads of these arrows were made of hard steel and were very sharp. But no matter how sharp they were, they couldn't pierce through the defenses of heavy shields and armors. Therefore, these arrows could only cause fatal damage to some light armored troops. Once they encountered heavy cavalry like the Flying Mount Battalion, they would probably be useless. But this situation was going to change today. Swoosh! She tossed the first arrow into the cauldron, and the wooden branch that was the arrow was immediately burned to ashes. The steel arrowhead also quickly turned red. Before the arrowhead could melt, Lin Muyu immediately activated his battle chi and controlled a small amount of white diamond particles to attach to the arrowhead. His spiritual perception seeped into the arrowhead and quickly sharpened the blade. Not long after that, a silver-plated arrowhead appeared in front of him. Can this thing really pierce through battle armor? Lin Muyu held the scorching arrowhead with a doubtful look on his face. With that in mind, he didn't think too much about it. He suddenly crossed his left arm in front of his chest and quickly condensed his battle chi armor. He then stabbed the arrowhead down with all his might. A sharp pain immediately came from his left arm. Sure enough, the white diamond arrowhead broke through the defense of his battle armor and left a wound on his arm. Heavens! Lin Muyu was completely shocked. After stepping into the second heavenly layer, she thought that ordinary weapons could no longer harm her. Now that she thought about it, this thought was laughably childish. Everything in the world had a natural counter to each other, and this white diamond was like the nemesis of battle armor. It was like fire was afraid of water. After being hit by the white diamond arrowhead, it automatically dissipated. She used her battle chi to stop the bleeding and put the arrowhead aside. Then, she pulled out all the arrowheads from the cluster of arrows and smelted them into white diamonds one by one. However, there were nearly 100 arrows in this cluster, and half of the crystal pillar was only enough to smelt 50 arrows. She had no choice but to smelt the second white diamond crystal. As a result, after tempering all 100 arrows into white diamond arrowheads, she also tempered the pear blossom spear and demonic noise saber with white diamonds. This also meant that if she encountered a powerhouse above the second heavenly layer, the weapons tempered with white diamonds would achieve a miraculous effect. In fact, there was only one reason why Lin Muyu was so eager to smelt so many white diamond arrowheads. and that was to deal with the sanctuary powerhouse. After Zheng Yifan killed Rong Hanyuan in Zetian Palace, who wouldn't be afraid of the power of the sanctuary? Even Qin Lei, Feng Jixing, and the others couldn't fight back against Zheng Yifan, let alone other people. Moreover, no one knew how many powerhouses were hiding on this continent. Zheng Yifan, Chu Chu, and Lei Hong weren't the only ones in the sanctuary. This was already an indisputable fact. The main reason why Lin Muyu ordered Wei Chou to build a godly archer battalion for the Longdan army camp was to use this army to deal with the sanctuary. That's right, under the explosive shooting of a group of godly archers' white diamond arrowheads, any sanctuary powerhouse would probably fall into a desperate situation, right? After placing this bundle of white diamond arrowheads beside the bed, Lin Muyu finally calmed down and fell into a deep sleep. She hadn't had a good sleep for many days. Now that she was in the center of an army of 10,000, there was no need to talk about her safety, so she could have a good sleep. The night passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was already early morning. The sound of horse hooves outside woke Lin Muyu up. After she got up and washed up, Wei Chou had already come over with the demon-devouring bow. He smiled and said, "My lord, did you sleep well?" "Very well." Lin Muyu smiled slightly and said, "Wei Chou, carry the bundle of arrowheads in my room. We'll go to the shooting range now and try it out." Oh. Wei Chou didn't question much, and went in to carry the arrows out. Looking at the luster of the arrows, his heart sank and he said, "My lord, these arrows have an inexplicable feeling of sharpness. Let's go." When they arrived at the shooting range, they saw a group of soldiers from the Divine Archer unit practicing mounted archery. The target was covered with arrows, and the hooves of horses galloped back and forth. However, there were a few Tianchong army heavy cavalry chatting and laughing to the side. Among them, Qing raised her spear and said with a smile, "No matter how good one's archery is, it is impossible to pierce through the armor of heavy cavalry. It's all in vain." Wei Chou was somewhat displeased. "That may not be true. As long as it is accurate, it is possible to kill with one arrow." Qing laughed heartily. "It's just that not every archer can train their archery to my lord Wei Chou's level. General Lin, don't you think so?" "That may not be true." Lin Muyu smiled mysteriously and said, "Qing, place your Tianchong army shield under the target. Wei Chou, shoot an arrow and see if it can pierce through the shield." "Okay." Qing spurred her horse forward, unconvinced. She placed a black heavy shield under the target and said with a smile, "The Tianchong army's black stone shield weighs at least 100 pounds, and is 3 centimeters thick. Let's see how you can pierce through it." Wei Chou did not say anything. He raised his hand and grabbed a white diamond arrow, knocked it on the demon-devouring bow, and slowly pulled it back. With a whoosh, the arrow left the bowstring. In the next moment, with a clang, it completely pierced through the shield. Qi Ying's mouth was wide open in shock. How is this possible?" It must be because of my lord Wei Chou's arm strength that you can do this. If it was someone else, it may not be the same." Wei Chou knew the secret behind this and smiled slightly. "Then let's change to someone else. Sun Hu, you shoot an arrow." As he spoke, he handed over a white diamond arrow. The mercenary from the Longdan army camp raised his hand and shot an arrow. Just like before, the arrow pierced through the heavy shield with a clang. Qing was completely dumbfounded. There must be something fishy going on. The shields of our Tianchong army are not shoddily made low-quality equipment. How is this possible? Wei Chou patted his shoulder and smiled. "All right, let's get ready for the morning's mission." Chapter 219. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Batches of soldiers from the Tianchong army and Longdan army camp returned with good news. The 47 branches of the House of Chivalry in Sungnan province had all been destroyed. More than half of them had surrendered. Longdan army camp had been able to pick out nearly 3,000 men of good character and strength to join the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu's task in these 10 days was very simple. She continued to refine the white diamond crystals and forged 20,000 white diamond arrows for the Longdan army camp. This should be enough for a while. Moreover, Luo Yu was a good general. Every time she shot out a white diamond arrow, she would retrieve it. Even if the arrow was broken, she would pull out the arrowhead and install a new arrow. At noon, Wei Chou returned with a batch of captives and supplies from the House of Chivalry. His face was beaming with joy as he went straight to the main tent. "My lord, we have seized nearly 50,000 Jining coins. Heh! These people in the House of Chivalry's branches are really rich." Lin Muyu was installing arrowheads on arrows. She twisted them and smiled. The House of Chivalry is like the wandering mercenaries. They make a living by robbing the people. Naturally, they are very rich. Wei Chou cupped his fists and smiled, saying, "Sir, from now on, the House of Chivalry's military forces in the Tsangnan province have been almost completely wiped out by us. There will no longer be anyone oppressing the people and causing the fires of war here." "Do you think that will be the case?" Lin Muyu smiled, stood up and said, "The House of Chivalry is admittedly very strong, but the 9 cities of Tsangnan province each have a military force of no less than 2,000 people. The local government should be responsible for eliminating the bandits, but we have to do it. Even if we leave, new bandits will breed here, so it's completely useless." Then isn't it meaningless for us to eliminate the bandits this time?" "Not necessarily." Lin Muyu did not continue and said, "In the afternoon, Zhang Wei will be leading the 3,000 Imperial Guards. They will be here to supervise and protect the Fire Axe Mountains gold mining. Send someone to ensure the safety of the Imperial Guards before we leave." "Yes." Wei Chou saluted and suddenly smiled. "I heard that. Princess, she has come to Kathia City with Lord Zhang Wei." "Oh, sir, aren't you going to welcome them?" Then let's go." Lin Muyu's heart warmed. It seemed that she hadn't seen Tang Xiaoxi for a long time. It was afternoon, and the sun was shining brightly. The sound of hooves could be heard from the distant road as the 3,000-strong Imperial Guards led by Zhang Wei arrived at Silver Fir City. At the very front of the formation was Tang Xiaoxi. She was dressed in a fiery red robe, and her cloak was embroidered with gold. It was a beautiful sight to behold. When she saw Lin Muyu and the others from afar, she immediately spurred her horse forward. Whoosh! Tang Xiaoxi suddenly leapt from her warhorse, the fire fox on her shoulder chirping loudly. Beneath her feet was a firefox seal shrouded in fighting aura. Like a beautiful fairy from the heavens, she leapt into Lin Muyu's arms in an instant. Lin Muyu laughed heartily as he subconsciously opened his arms and pulled Tang Xiaoxi into his embrace. He probably didn't even know how much he had missed this gentle and mischievous princess in the past half a month. In the end, the impact of Tang Xiaoxi's embrace was too great, and he tumbled off his warhorse with Lin Muyu. Wrapped in a white cloak, Lin Muyu slid down the grass for nearly 10 meters before coming to a stop. "Xiaoxi, you've stepped into the heavenly realm?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile as he held her in his arms. Tang Xiaoxi was as beautiful as a peach blossom, and she nodded with a flushed face. "Amen. With Chu and Grand Deacon Lei Hong's help, I've already mastered the Firefox seal, and my cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds." "That's great." Lin Muyu spun around and deftly stood up with the beautiful princess in his arms. He gently let go of Tang Xiaoxi's slender waist and said in a tone that was both sentimental and polite, "Why did you come to Kathia City with Lord Zhang Wei?" "Because I missed you." Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue, not bothering to hide her longing for Lin Muyu at all. At the side, Wei Chou hugged his sword and smiled. "Commander, when are you going to marry Princess Shi?" Zhang Wei also smiled and cupped his fists. "Congratulations, Lord Lin Muyu. You're about to become the son-in-law of Seven Seas Province." Lin Muyu blushed, and her heart thumped loudly. She tried her best to calm herself down and said with a smile, "You guys don't hit me when I'm down, all right? Xiaoxi is still young." "Still young?" Zhang Wei grinned. "My mother gave birth to me when she was 16, and Princess Shi is almost 20 now. Is she still young?" He tilted his head and looked at the peaks beneath Tang Xiaoxi's chest. The girl's figure was unusually tall and straight, and that pair of shameful and proud breasts bulged out of the front of the princess's robe. Zhang Wei hurriedly wiped away his saliva and said, "You're not young either." Tang Xiaoxi's face turned even redder. Suddenly, She opened her right hand and a flame mark rose slowly. It was the Tiancheng seal, the fourth heaven of the Firefox seal. She smiled with a murderous aura. Zhang Wei, do you want to die? Zhang Wei's cultivation advanced slowly, and he had yet to step into the heaven realm. How could he be a match for Tang Xiaoxi? He couldn't help but tremble and said, Princess Shi, please spare my life. I didn't mean any disrespect when I spoke nonsense just now. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to hold Tang Xiaoxi's palm and dissolved the power of the Firefox seal. She smiled. Xiaoxi, don't stoop to his level. Let's go back to the camp with me. We'll break camp and return to Lanyan City in 1 or 2 days. Okay. She smiled sweetly. Zhang Wei cupped his fists. Then, I'll bring my men to take over the Fire Axe Mountains gold mine. Lady Lin Muyu, I'll leave Princess Shi's safety in your hands. Don't neglect her when I, old Zhang, send the beauty over. Lin Muyu grinned. I'll hand you over to the military law office if you speak nonsense again. Aha, old Zhang will take his leave. Goodbye, everyone. Zhang Wei tugged on the reins and led the Imperial Army cavalry away. Behind them were a group of miners and commoners pushing the carriages. It was no wonder that they took 10 days to arrive. It must have been hard on Tang Xiaoxi. She had to follow this group of uncouth men for 10 days. Holding Tang Xiaoxi's hand as they returned to the Longden army camp, Lin Muyu asked with a smile, how strange. Xiaoxi, how could you have been patient enough to follow Zhang Wei's group for 10 days? Given your personality, you should have reached Kathaya City in 3 days. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said pitifully, you're still asking. Originally, Chu and Xiaoyin didn't allow me to come. It was only after much begging that they allowed me to follow Zhang Wei's 3,000 cavalry. I didn't eat or sleep well along the way. Now that we've finally arrived, and this is your territory, Mu, you have to treat me well. Of course. Lin Muyu beckoned for Luo Yu to come over, and took out a bag of Jining coins. Smiling, she said, Luo Yu, send someone into the city and buy some good wine and food. I want to treat Princess Shi well tonight. Yes, my lord. Luo Yu took the money pouch and raised his head to look at Tang Xiaoxi. Instantly, a trace of confusion flashed past his eyes. He was just a fellow with a knight-errant background, and had never seen such a beautiful woman before. Moreover, he had never seen such a noble young miss like Tang Xiaoxi. Instantly, he was in a trance. Tang Xiaoxi burst into laughter. Luo Yu, what are you looking at? Who would look at the commander like that? Her pretty little face blushed again. For a moment, she didn't know how to describe herself to Lin Muyu and just stood there awkwardly. She wanted to put on the airs of a princess, but she was so embarrassed that she didn't know where to start. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh at her beauty. Luo Yu, hurry up and go. If you want to look, come back later. Xiaoxi is coming back to Lanyan City with us. Luo Yu calmed himself down and cupped his fists. Yes, my lord. But don't worry, my lord. I won't look at my lord's woman again. Luo Yu is a reasonable person. Lin Muyu went forward and patted his shoulder. He was indeed a reasonable person. Good brother. After sending Luo Yu away, they returned to the main tent. There was only Tang Xiaoxi and Lin Muyu left in the tent. The two of them sat opposite each other, and felt a little awkward. They didn't know what to say. Finally, Lin Muyu broke the awkward silence and said, Xiaoxi, how's the process of cultivating the Firefox seal? Tang Xiaoxi blinked her big eyes and said, Grandpa started teaching me the Firefox seal when I wasn't even 6 years old. It's just that I couldn't cultivate it due to my physique. Now that I've opened the hidden latch, the Firefox seal naturally came to fruition. On the same day, I cultivated the third heaven of the Firefox seal. In another 5 days, I cultivated the fourth heaven of the Firefox seal. Grandpa Chu Chu said that with my perception, I might be able to cultivate the seventh heaven of the Firefox seal in less than 2 months. He said that my talent far exceeds Brother Tangbin's. Is that so? Lin Muyu was also secretly delighted. That's great. Xiaoxi has grown into a strong practitioner, who possesses the Firefox seal. This is a great thing for us. Oh right, how's Xiaoyin's cultivation? It's all right. Xiaoyin's cultivation has always been fast. In the past 6 months, She has advanced by leaps and bounds. She originally planned to come with me to Seongnan province, but unfortunately, Her Majesty didn't allow it. She had no choice but to continue cultivating in Zetian Palace. Ah, is that so? Lin Muyu unwittingly smiled and said, I haven't seen you and Xiaoyin for many days. I really miss you guys. Tang Xiaoxi pouted and said with a look of disbelief, You're now a general who commands thousands of troops. I thought you were already immersed in military affairs and didn't have time to miss us. How could that be? Lin Muyu smiled and said, I'm immersed in military affairs only because the Empire needs me. Oh right, we'll break camp and return to Lanyan City tomorrow. Eat more tonight and sleep early. Amen. At night, Luo Yu and a few mercenaries from the Longdan army camp brought food and wine from Kathaya City along with a few cooks. Only Princess she could receive such treatment. They made a table full of food and wine, and placed it in the tent. However, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi definitely couldn't finish it, so they invited Luo Yu, Wei Chou, Qiying, and the other generals to eat together. This caused Qiying, Wei Chou, and the others to almost cry. They had fought in the army for almost half their lives, but they had never eaten with someone as noble as a princess. So when their tears fell into the soup, they seemed to enjoy the meal even more. Lin Muyu secretly cursed these guys for being useless as she picked food for Tang Xiaoxi, making Tang Xiaoxi so happy that she was bursting with joy. They had just finished eating when a soldier reported that Shenyang had finally arrived at Kathaya City, with 15,000 infantrymen. However, the battle was already over, and it didn't seem appropriate to leave just like that. Therefore, Lin Muyu arranged a retreat route for him. Along the way, they would sweep away a few of the newly risen branches of the Hall of Chivalry in Lanyan City. It could be considered as doing the people a favor. Chapter 220. After traveling for 3 days, he returned to Lanyan City and handed the tiger tally to Qiying to bring back to Qihai Pass to hand it in. The Longdan army camp was brought back to Dragon Rocky Mountain by Luo Yu and Fengxi. They also trained the 4,000 new recruits. In this way, the total number of people in the Longdan army camp had reached 9,648, which was close to 10,000 people. Lin Muyu could be considered to have an army of 10,000 people outside. It could be said to be a mighty force. However, the price was that he had to pay Luo Yu another 500,000 Jin coins for the cost of weapons, rations, and warhorses. It was very expensive to raise this mercenary army that did not rob the common people. Fortunately, Lin Muyu could afford it for now. At night, Zetian Palace held a celebration banquet. The Emperor Qingjin and Princess Qinyin personally celebrated for Lin Muyu, Wei Chou, and the others. This trip had directly wiped out the forces of the House of Chivalry in Seongnan Province. Even if they were to rise from the ashes, they would no longer have the momentum they had in the past. After 3 rounds of drinking, everyone was a little tipsy. At this time, Qingjin stood up and said with a smile, You haven't returned to Zetian Palace for a long time. Imperial Father has something to say to you. Come, you and Xiaoyin can come to the rear hall together. Yes, Your Majesty. Lin Muyu bowed respectfully. Qinyin smiled and walked over. She held his cloak and followed this sworn brother into the rear hall with a smile. The rear hall was empty, but the candles were brightly lit. The maids and officials had already been dismissed by Qingjin. Under the candlelight, Qingjin, who was wearing a dragon robe with golden dragons circling around it, stood with his hands behind his back and his back facing Lin Muyu. He said, How is Seongnan Province? Lin Muyu was stunned. She did not know why he suddenly asked such a question. She cupped her fists and said, Prosperous, strong and prosperous. That's all? Qingjin turned around, raised his brows and asked again, I heard that you've already fought with Long Qianlin, an outstanding general of the younger generation in Five Valleys City. What do you think of Long Qianlin? Lin Muyu was calm as she replied, General Long Qianlin is a talented general with great command skills. The Flying Mount Battalion under his command is the cream of the crop. I have to admit that I'm no match for Long Qianlin if we were to clash on the battlefield. Really? Qingjin smiled faintly and said, But I heard that Long Qianlin led the Flying Mount Battalion to attack the mountain. But he didn't get the slightest benefit from your hands, you. To be more precise, Long Qianlin lost to your strategy. No. Lin Muyu said faintly, he didn't lose in terms of strategy, but in terms of equipment and vanguard. I brought along the most elite heavy cavalry of the Tianchong army, and 60 imperial guards to assist me in battle. The archery skills of Wei Chou and the others can be said to be the best in the world. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the flying cavalry battalion would have already taken down the Fire Axe Mountain. Let's not talk about this. Qin Jin suddenly changed the topic and asked, do you know that Hu Tianning privately minted Jining coins? Lin Muyu was slightly startled, and cold sweat involuntarily soaked his clothes. He cupped his fists and said with knitted brows, I didn't know. It's good that you didn't know. Qin Jin smiled faintly and reached out to pat his shoulder. He said, if you know and don't report, your crime is the same as deceiving the ruler. Do you understand? This general understands. Lin Muyu almost didn't dare to raise his head to look at Qin Jin's burning gaze. Who would dare say that Qin Jin was a muddle-headed and incompetent ruler? Lin Muyu definitely wouldn't agree. The Qin Jin before him was filled with wisdom, so much so that Lin Muyu felt afraid. Your Majesty. He paused for a moment, then asked, since your Majesty knows that Hu Tianning privately minted coins, why didn't you send troops to denounce him? Denounce him? Qin Jin couldn't help but smile. I only sent people to find out this information. How could I so easily attack a feudal lord without real evidence? Moreover, Long Qianlin is Hu Tianning's son-in-law and holds the military power of Zhangnan Province's 120,000 soldiers. If he really rebelled, I'm afraid Lanyan City would suffer a great calamity. You still have a lot to learn. Lin Muyu raised his head and glanced at him. She saw some affection in Qin Jin's eyes and asked, Imperial Father, do you already feel that you can't control Zhangnan Province? Yes, Qin Jin nodded without denying it. He sighed and said, Hu Tianning was once a general under the divine Marquis Zheng Yifan. He is brave and skilled in battle, and has a lot of prestige in the army. His son-in-law Long Qianlin now holds a large number of troops, and his nephew, Xiangyu, is the commander of the military police battalion. He's a high-ranking general who controls the entire army. It's true that I can't go to war with Zhangnan Province right now. If I touch Hu Tianning, Zhangnan Province will definitely rebel. Lin Muyu was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, but if we delay for too long, I'm afraid unforeseen events will occur. Qin Jin smiled slightly. Yes, so I have a task to entrust to you. In the entire imperial capital, only you are the most suitable person to complete this task, so... Oh, what task? Lin Muyu was stunned. Qin Yin, who was standing to the side, blushed but didn't say anything. Qin Jin stroked his beard and smiled. We want you to accompany Xiao Yin on a trip to her maternal grandfather's house. Miyu City? Yes. Qin Jin raised his head and said, You have to go to Yunzhong Province and do something as important as the heavens for us. Lin Muyu's heart sank. She seemed to have guessed something and said, It has something to do with Zhangnan Province, right? Qin Jin smiled. You is indeed extremely intelligent. In fact, you should have guessed that most of the documents we send to Yunzhong Province will be intercepted. Zheng Yifan's influence is too great. If I send an imperial edict to invite Xiao Yin's maternal grandfather, Duke Muyun, to dispatch troops to the Five Valleys city, I'm afraid that this imperial edict will be discovered halfway through the journey. Moreover, ordinary people won't be able to meet Duke Muyun, so you'll have to disguise yourself and escort Xiao Yin to Yunzhong Province. It's just as Chu said, Xiao Yin needs real experience. Your Majesty, wouldn't this be inappropriate? Lin Muyu was stunned. If it's only me, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to ensure Xiao Yin's safety. Don't you have confidence in yourself? Qin Jin looked at him indifferently and said, Among the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning four, you and Feng Jixing are the strongest. We can also see that your cultivation may be above Feng Jixing's, so no one is more suitable to accompany Xiao Yin to Yunzhong Province than you. Moreover, in the imperial capital, Chu has been playing chess with divine Marquis Zheng Yifan every day, and has Zheng Yifan firmly under his control in the imperial capital. With your and Xiaoyin's cultivation, who else do you have to worry about? Lin Muyu was startled. It seemed that, as the emperor said, she was already so strong. With the addition of Qin Yin, who had the god-binding chains and the strength of the heaven realm, who else could there be? Perhaps Xiang Yu would be one, but Xiang Yu would never make a move against Qin Yin. After all, if he wanted to be promoted and get rich, he had to protect Qin Yin, the heir to the throne. If the world really fell into chaos, Xiang Yu might not even be able to make it as a commander. Moreover, Lin Muyu had now comprehended the fourth element of the seven luminaries' profound energy, and her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Even if Xiang Yu really came, he and Qin Yin might not lose even if they joined forces. The most important thing was disguise. As long as they disguised themselves well, no one would be able to discover them. Clap, clap. Qin Jin clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Bring out the luggage." Immediately, two attendants walked over with a tray in their hands. On the tray were two sets of tattered clothes. One set of men's clothes and the other set of women's clothes. They looked as if they had been stripped from the bodies of beggars on the streets. Beside the women's clothes was a worn-out seven-string zither, and beside the men's clothes was a rusty iron sword. This is... Lin Muyu was completely confused. Qin Jin stroked his beard and said with a smile, "Chu has already prepared identities for you. A pair of brother and sister who are traveling the martial world. The younger sister plays the zither for a living while the older brother performs sword dances and acrobatics for a living. What do you think?" He actually looked a little pleased with himself. What else could Lin Muyu say? She cupped her fists and said, "Your Majesty is mighty." Qin Yin, on the other hand, looked excited. She said with a smile, "Big brother you, does this mean that you've already agreed to go sightseeing with me? No, to train in the martial world?" Lin Muyu looked at her helplessly and said, "Amen, but Xiaoyin, you must be prepared to endure hardships. The outside world is not like the Zetian Palace Hall. There are many hardships that you can't imagine." "I know," Qin Jin said with a smile. Qin Jin smiled and said, "I've already asked people to prepare 2 old horses for you. You two can take your time to get to Cloud Province. Don't be in a hurry, and remember to make a living as a performer along the way. Also, you'll have to find someone to help you disguise yourselves. Otherwise, with your looks, it'll be difficult for you two not to be recognized." "Yes." Sure enough, Qin Jin ordered 2 maidservants to style Lin Muyu and Qin Yin. An hour later, Lin Muyu's face had 2 scars that had coagulated for a long time, while Qin Yin's beautiful face was covered with a few freckles and other stains. This caused the number 1 beauty in the empire to instantly fall out of the top 10,000. However, the outstanding looks between her brows could still be vaguely seen. Following the emperor's orders, they were not allowed to greet anyone. Thus, they left Lanyan City in the middle of the night, and mingled with a group of acrobats who were entering the palace to perform. They left Zetian Palace Hall and rode 2 thin and weak old horses out of Lanyan City. The cold wind blew in the night. Lin Muyu wore a thin cloak, and carried the dragon spirit sword and a rusty iron sword wrapped in black cloth on her back. After leaving the city, she turned to look at Qin Yin, only to find that the princess was holding the 7-string zither on her back, and holding the reins. Her eyes were like stars as she looked at everything outside excitedly and curiously. Her heart was jumping with joy like a bird that had just been released from its cage. "Are you happy?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Qin Yin smiled faintly. "Of course I'm happy to come out to train with Big Brother Yu." "Where's Big Brother Yu? Are you happy coming out with Xiaoyin?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded and said with a smile, "I'm afraid that if I say I'm not happy, you'll push me out." Qin Yin burst into laughter. "Don't always make me laugh. Xiao said that girls who laugh all the time will get wrinkles very early." All right. I won't tease you anymore. Hurry up and find an inn on the official road outside the city as soon as possible." "Yes." Chapter 221. The Cloud Ancient Road was one of the oldest official roads in the empire. It led from Lanyan City to Muyu City. There were hundreds of guest houses along the way. It was said that the Cloud Ancient Road was even older than the Qin Empire. It had existed for tens of thousands of years. The night was dark. A man and a woman rode their horses slowly on the ancient road. Lin Muyu touched the neck of the horse. She couldn't help but feel sorry for it. This old horse was probably about the same age as her. It was dying, but it still had to do such a hard job. He looked up at the sky and couldn't help but worry. The clouds are dense. It's either going to snow or rain. Qin Yin tied her cloak with a ladle-like button in front of her chest. She smiled and said, "Brother Yu, since we came out together, shouldn't we give each other a new name?" "Sure. What should I call you?" "How about this, we'll use your surname. I'm Lin Yin and you're Lin Yu. What do you think?" "Lin Yu." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. "It sounds like we're going to get wet in the rain. It's a bit ominous." As soon as he finished speaking, a drop of rain fell on his nose. He wiped it. It was a little cold. He hurriedly grabbed the reins and said, "It's going to rain. Xiao Yin, let's go quickly. There should be a small town ahead." Okay. It didn't take long for the winter rain to start. Fortunately, there was a dim light on the road ahead. There was a house. Dismounting from the horse, Lin Muyu picked up a worn-out oil paper umbrella and opened it with a whoosh, only to find that there were 7 or 8 holes in it. She couldn't help but smile. Qin Jin really didn't care about his daughter and godson. The umbrella he prepared for them was almost dispensable. However, he still covered Qin Yin with the umbrella. Qin Yin looked up at him and smiled sweetly. "No need. I'll use the cloak to block the wind and rain." "But your cloak is only made of coarse cloth. It can't block the rain at all." "Oh, that's true." Qin Yin stuck out her tongue, almost forgetting that she was no longer wearing the exquisite princess cloak. The two of them led the horse and walked towards the light. After a few minutes, they entered the small town. They could see restaurants and inns in the distance. There were many merchants, cultivators, mercenaries, and travelers on the ancient cloud path. The business in the small town along the way was very good, especially when it was raining and they were in the middle of nowhere. There were more and more people in the town. Lin Muyu and Qin Yin didn't stand out when they walked in the crowd. After all, the shabby cloaks they wore made them look no different from people who wandered the world. First, they found a place to eat and rest. Lin Muyu's eyes kept looking at the shops on both sides. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on a huge horizontal board with a line of words written on it. She couldn't help but read it aloud. "The beef cow hates the pot and the iron mountain." Wow, there's actually such a domineering poem in this rural area. "What poem?" Qin Yin pouted and held his hand. "Why don't you read it upside down?" Lin Muyu was speechless. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. She pouted and said, "Just write it properly. Why do they have to write it upside down? I really can't see through them." Qin Yin held back her laughter. "Brother, where are we going to sleep tonight? How about this iron pot restaurant? Let's eat first and then find a place to sleep." "No." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were like water. She glanced at their clothes and laughed softly. "Do you think our attire and occupation are suitable to eat expensive beef loaf?" "That's true." Lin Muyu pointed to the front and said, "There's a wine shop there. It also provides accommodation. Let's stay there?" "Yes." Qin Yin smiled and nodded. The tavern was bustling with people, and business was good. There was an umbrella dragon's head hanging on the eaves of the tavern. It looked a little scary, and the name of the tavern was written below it, Umbrella Dragon Tavern. From afar, a waiter greeted them with a smile on his face. "Would you like to have a meal or stay here?" "Yes, we are." Lin Muyu asked, "How much does it cost to stay here for a night?" The waiter led the horse over and smiled. "The two of you are husband and wife, right? A first-class husband and wife room is only 10 silver coins a night." Lin Muyu was about to agree immediately. He didn't want Qin Yin to suffer too much with him. However, he didn't expect Qin Yin to take off her cloak and reveal a freckled face. She smiled and said, "Waiter, how much is a second-class room for a night?" 3 silver coins. "Then give us a second-class room." "All right, please come in. I will help you get a room and feed the horse." "Thank you." After entering the wine shop, they found that it was indeed a foul atmosphere. There were dozens of tables in the huge wine shop's lobby, and almost all of them were occupied. There were all kinds of people. There were wild mercenaries wielding axes, gentle scholars, and even merchants silently calculating their gains and losses. All of them were busy with their own things. Lin Muyu held Qin Yin's hand and sat down in a corner of the wine shop. He called out to the waiter and asked, "Xiao Yin, what would you like to eat?" Qin Yin smiled and said in a natural and unrestrained manner, "Let's eat something simple. After all, we don't have much silver coins left. Waiter, can we have 2 portions of coarse bread and a bowl of vegetable soup?" "All right, please wait for a moment." The waiter nodded and bowed before leaving. Not long after, their dinner was served. Even Lin Muyu, who was used to the harsh life in the army, was stunned. The coarse bread was really coarse and as hard as iron. She almost had to use the dragon spirit sword to slice it. As for the vegetable soup, it was already slightly cold. No wonder these 2 servings of food only cost 10 copper coins. Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu and couldn't help but smile. She dipped the coarse bread into the vegetable soup and said, "Brother, it can be bitten like this." "Oh, is that so?" Lin Muyu looked at her with a smile. Qin Yin opened her cherry lips and took a bite of the bread. Suddenly, she was petrified. How could she have known that the bread was so hard? She blushed and put down the bread. "Looks like I'll have to soak it a little longer." Lin Muyu laughed heartily. It wasn't easy to eat something warm in this cold weather. Moreover, they couldn't show off their skills here. Otherwise, it would be easy for others to discover the truth. After finishing the meal with great difficulty, the waiter of the tavern clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Dear friends of Jianghu and Yinzhong Ancient Road, next up is the wonderful program that this tavern has prepared for everyone. Our shopkeeper has specially invited a few exquisite beauties from the western region. They are good at playing the huqin. I hope that everyone will do me the honor. Ha, please." Amidst the hustle and bustle, 5 women dressed in thin clothes walked to the simple wooden stage in the center of the hall with huqin in their arms. After bowing gracefully, they began to play and sing some songs that Lin Muyu couldn't understand. Although she couldn't understand them, the melody seemed pretty good. Qin Yin sat there with a smile on her face, enjoying the moment of peace. After the song, the waiter walked up to the stage again and put his arm around the shoulders of 2 of the beauties from the western region. He smiled and said, "Friends, as you can see, the beauties of our Umbrella Dragon Tavern are both talented and skilled. It's winter now, and the weather is cold. I'm sure all of you don't want to sleep alone. We've all tasted the feeling of being alone. So, you can bring these 5 beauties back to your room to accompany you to sleep. However, the highest bidder wins. Now, is there anyone willing to bring the beauties on my left?" A drunk mercenary in the crowd raised his axe high and laughed. 5, I want all of them. 5 Jining coins deal. Whoever dares to compete with me, I'll chop him in half with my axe. The waiter was stunned. He smiled and said, "Sir, the number of beauties in the tavern is limited. You can't take them all. Besides, isn't 1 Jining coin too cheap?" "None of your business. I want them." The mercenary carried his axe and staggered forward. The waiter's eyes flashed, and he suddenly stepped forward. His palm was filled with zhenqi, and he seized the mercenary's vital acupoint on the mercenary's wrist. He pushed the mercenary out of the door and said with a smile, "Sir, you've drunk too much. You'd better rest early." The waiter pushed the mercenary away lightly, and the mercenary fell into the mud outside with a grunt. Lin Muyu frowned. She didn't expect there to be such an expert in the tavern. That waiter was at least at the 2nd level of the Earth realm. Everyone continued to eat and drink. "Haha, let's continue to fight for these Western region beauties." The waiter nodded and bowed to the crowd with a cheeky smile. Soon, the 5 Western region women were taken away to serve the guests, and the tavern fell into an awkward atmosphere. They probably didn't prepare any other programs. At this moment, Qin Yin stood up and said to the waiter, "My brother and I are entertainers who travel the martial world. May I ask if we can perform a song for everyone in your tavern?" The waiter's eyes lit up. Although Qin Yin had put on makeup, the waiter could still see the girl's elegant and refined appearance. He nodded and smiled. "Sure, please, miss." "Okay, thank you." Qin Yin tugged at Lin Muyu, a gentle smile in her eyes. She laughed softly and said, I've said that we'll be performing along the way. You can't be lazy. Xiao Yin, play the zither, I'll practice the sword. Okay. Lin Wuyu braced himself and walked onto the stage with Qin Yin. He raised his hand and pulled out the rusty iron sword on his back. He cupped his fists and smiled at the crowd. He said loudly, My sister and I are entertainers in the martial world. We pass by this place, so we will perform a zither dance to thank you. If you think it's good, you can give us some money. If you think it's not good, you can just laugh it off. Everyone was solemn, and their eyes all fell on Qin Yin beside him. They were all looking at the beautiful girls. Who had time to look at the handsome guy? Qin Yin sat down gracefully. Her Royal Highness's temperament and etiquette were not something that ordinary women could possess. She tightened the strings of the 7-stringed guqin and placed it on her thighs. With a light wave of her hand, the first melody was already playing in the tavern. It was melodious and sweet, as if a young girl was expressing her thoughts. Lin Wuyu was a little speechless. He was good at killing people with a sword, but to accompany a sword dance, this was a little difficult for him. In desperation, he followed the rhythm of the melody and waved his long sword gently. There was nothing else but the routine of the wind-riding swordsmanship. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.